That's right.
Good afternoon. I'm gonna start off with our, has everybody got a copy of the sheet I sent Mr. Larry here? Okay. So if you view the sheet I gave you here, I actually had a pretty good month in Crescent City. There was a couple specific incidents that we met with that I was made aware of after our first meeting last month. I'll start off with basically the reports that we took during the whole month of April. And if you have any questions on the specific incidents, I'll answer what I can. First off is a disturbance that occurred at 123 Reed Street. It was a domestic violence related battery. Suspect was identified. His name is Daryl Johnson, and he's been charged and a warrant filed for this incident. That case is being solved, but we are still actively pursuing the suspect, Mr. Johnson. The second was one of those cases that I was made aware that there was somebody sleeping behind the library, and there was possibly some drug use and whatnot going on back there. I sent my deputies over there to take a look at it. They ended up arresting a gentleman by the name of Mauricio Cruz for trespass after warning, and they also found drug paraphernalia there. And I was just told by one of the librarians here that they haven't had a problem since then. So hopefully that goes away, but we are still actively patrolling the library. The next one was I was made aware of some drug activity that was going on at Harry Banks Park, for some suspected drug activity. Again, sent some of my crime suppression guys over there along with our K9 unit. They ended up locating a vehicle that was there after hours, approached the vehicle after the encounter. They ended up arresting the individuals in the car for some drugs in the vehicle. Next case is at 427 North Summit Street. It's another solved case. T. Robertson was charged with violation of an injunction. There was a incident here where there was an injunction for protection, and the suspect in this case ended up coming within whatever the distance is of that location where they were not supposed to be, and they were apprehended for that crime. They were charged with the violation of the injunction. Next one I have here is at 100 Lakeshore Drive. A bicycle was stolen. Unless we see that bicycle on the street somewhere, our guys are actively looking for it, but we couldn't find the bicycle. And we've done a neighborhood canvas, really couldn't find anything on that specific incident. The next is at 604 Lemon Avenue. There was this is kind of a long story. A gentleman by the name of William Dixon was seen pushing somebody's super slide down the road, trying to steal it out of their front yard. This led into the county where we ended up locating Mr. Dixon. He had broken into an abandoned house and was taking refuge there. He ended up stealing a kayak and was even related to some crimes over in the Satsuma area. So again, he was ultimately pursued by our deputies, tracked by K9, and was arrested after we had to bring our Marine unit down and get him out of the water. So that case is also solved. The accidental shooting that was reported at 300 Summer Street down here in front of the convenience store. I'm trying to think, there's a little glare down there. At this time, it's been deemed an accidental shooting, and no formal charges have been filed against that case. And might I add, the actual location of that shooting, we are still unaware. That's the closest location that we can get, but there's been so many conflicting statements, we don't know where it happened at. We know it's happened between the Volusia County line and Crescent City. So we just left it at that location because that's where they said that's the best place that we can find to actually keep it at that location. So it is in the city. There was an accidental shooting, but we still can't verify where this actually happened at. Palmetto Avenue, deputies were attempting to conduct a traffic stop. A vehicle basically tried to run from them, ran up in somebody's yard. They bailed out of the car, and the deputy did pursue him at that time because he still wanted to clear the vehicle before going up there. Once backup got there, they retrieved a significant amount of narcotics out of the car, and a AR style rifle was seized from that traffic stop. Going back to the beginning of the page there where it says law enforcement activities, that was total calls in the city of Crescent City. That was 195 calls for service, and that does include all the proactive stuff, the traffic stops, the checking out with the suspicious person and whatnot. I don't have those percentages of which ones were the proactive stops and which ones were not. That's just a general number of all the calls for service in the city limits of Crescent City. The second one you see there is the traffic stops that were generated. Again, that was within the city. It was kind of time consuming for me to go through all of the East District and over all of the East District deputies to see which of these traffic stops were conducted in the city, or they seen the violation in the city, but they ended up conducting the stop outside of the city limits. So just as an example, you get a car on 308B on Huntington Road, that's speeding inside of the city, and they get stopped at Union and 17, of course, that's in the county, so that's gonna be counted as a county stop. And it was taking me a long time to go through those, so I'm gonna try to, on the next meeting, hopefully I'll have those numbers, and I'll try to find a better way to get a more accurate account of that. You see the monthly crime trend, it says 50%. Understand that that is very low numbers. When I say 50%, there were 4 reportable crimes. And what I mean by reportable crimes is UCR reportable crimes. That's the crimes that we report to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, who ends up reporting to the FBI. And of those, there were 4 last year in April of 2020, and only 2 this year of 2021. Some significant events here. I'm gonna start at the bottom here with the, if you have a sex offender in your city that has basically absconded. Lamar Beasley has absconded. We have warrants for his arrest for a violation of sex offender probation or registration. He was last seen in the Keystone Heights area. We did a subpoena from the bank. We were able to get those records and actually see the photo of him cashing a check there. We're working with FDLE to start tracking his phone and try to find out where this guy's at so we can get him back in custody. Now, to my favorite part, you guys have the flyer for kids, cops, kids, and kayaks. Okay. So we've got a tentative date for that for June the 5th. I'll have some flyers over here on the table.
Thank you.
10 to 4, as you can see, there's gonna be all kind of activities here. I see where they missed out. There will be food and beverages, the little Kona, whatever it's called,
Kona Ice.
Kona Ice, that they're gonna be there.
Brenda with a hot dog, she's going to be
Okay.
there. And I
Okay.
believe they have 2 other vendors that have asked to be there.
Perfect. And there's gonna be all kind of activities there. We'll obviously have some representation from the sheriff's office. So that's kind of what I'll put it. Everybody's excited for that. I think it's gonna be a good time.
Should be.
Right. So other than that, does anyone have any questions for me this time?
Good job.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner DeVito, do you have a question?
I have a couple of questions. On the first page, and thank you for this report, by the way, it's very concise and very easy to read. The first page, I'm sorry, I lost my place. The shooting at the Bolero, where you have, maybe it's the second page.
Yes,
Sorry,
ma'am.
it's the second page. I beg your pardon. It's the third one down, the accidental shooting at 300 South Summit.
Yes, ma'am.
Did that one result in a death?
It did.
Okay, I just want to make sure. And then as well, the second one on the second page that's listed as 604 Lemon Avenue solved
Yes, ma'am.
with Mr. Dixon. My understanding of that is, my husband and I live on Lake Stella, that this man wasn't just taking a slide. My neighbors told me that he threatened the homeowner in the front yard. Another of my across the lake neighbors told me that the guy was trespassing in his yard and confronted him with an older gentleman. Apparently he got away twice across the lake. You were saying he stole a kayak. He also stole a canoe from my backyard, which I tried to, I found some other items in my backyard that were unfamiliar to me. And I tried to report that and they said it wasn't needed. But the bottom line is, I think the first call was made on Friday. He was cited by a couple of people. He was wandering around the backyards in the Lake Stella area where people have garages and outbuildings. It appears to me that he was wandering around and stealing things and sleeping in our backyards all weekend. So, and I've made this request before, and not just for me. But when there's a situation like that, when someone is committing crimes and wandering around, it would be good if somehow people in the area could be notified. Because I'm pretty sure he was in our backyard. I found items and it just, nobody knew. It just was word of mouth by the neighbors, and some of it I didn't find out about until later. And apparently he was quite out of his head.
He was very high on, I'm not sure if it was Molly or methamphetamine, but he was, when you say that the lady was threatened in her front yard, he was actually proclaiming to be the Lord Jesus Christ and all
Right.
kind of other things, so.
Two
yes, ma'am.
people who encountered him were very disturbed and told me about that. So it's just concerning that anybody, he could have walked up on anybody anywhere, and we were just not aware. So I've asked this for several years, not just your agency. If there is a way to, notify the neighbors when somebody is loose running around, that would be really good.
So normally what happens when we're in pursuit of a suspect like that, we usually do what we call a reverse 911 call, and we can do that by area. So I can extend out by where this actual location is at. I can extend out a quarter mile, half mile, or whatever the case may be. So I'll just have to look at the details on that and find out if that was done, if it was not done, why it wasn't done, or anything of that nature. So normally if it's not done, there's a reason for it. And, luckily this guy was taken into custody, so he is, I believe he's currently still in jail.
And that was the other thing I was gonna ask you. What, is he in jail, and do we have any idea when he's getting out?
As of the day before yesterday, he was still in jail. I'll obviously check every day,
Sure.
but he was in jail the day before yesterday. So I'll just have to check our sheriff's office jail website to see if he's out yet.
Okay, because I think some neighbors might like to know, and
Absolutely.
I don't know why he was in this area, whether he'll be likely to come back to it. But anyway, thank you for
No
that.
problem. Thank you.
Yeah, I have one question. Underneath the other significant events, you have kids and cops, which is a thumbs up. But you also have a shooting on Bay Lane, which is still an active investigation. Is
I'm
that
sorry.
right?
Yes, that is an active investigation. We are waiting on some, trying to say what I can exactly reveal right here. We're waiting on a few things to come back from the state attorney's office and also some subpoenas before we actually issue a warrant in that case and make that arrest.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions? Thank you very much.
You're
We
welcome.
appreciate it.
If there are no other questions from the commission, they're gonna go back out and fight crime. So,
Okay. We're gonna get them out of here before 9 o'clock tonight.
Actually, I do have another question.
Okay, Commissioner.
It was discussed that you would be available for office hours or for people to meet with you. Do you have a place to meet? Do we have any particular hours? How do we do that?
This is initial planning, but I'm planning to be here on Tuesdays and Thursdays as soon as we get our establishment down at Miller Intermediate. Once school is out, we'll take over that front office, and that's where one of my satellite offices will be. So I have the sheriff's office, the main sheriff's office on Highway 19. I have the satellite office in Satsuma, and also we'll have the satellite office down here in Crescent City. And I also plan to have an official meet and greet. It's probably going to be on a weekend where everybody's off of work, where I can come down here and get an opportunity to say hello. And whatnot.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
And to the captain's credit, anytime a resident has asked to meet with him or speak to him, he has been more than willing to go out to their home actually and speak to them. He's spoken to numerous people at their home and had some concerns or wanted to
But
have an
how do they make-
opportunity to meet them.
How do
Yeah,
they make that request to call City Hall?
they can usually call City Hall or
You can call City Hall, you can call the sheriff's office at the regular non-emergency number, and they, normally those dispatchers will give me an email to call that. Just leave me a good name and a callback number,
Okay.
and they'll send me an email. with that information.
Can you tell us your non-emergency number, please? Do you have it?
329-0800.
And also, I think for everybody to know that the phone is still active at the police department. Last we checked, the phone is still active.
We're in the process of turning those off.
You are going to turn that off? Okay. Okay, well,
I think there'll be a fix for that. Once we get in the office down here, I'll have an actual
you'll
office
have it
number.
down there.
So
Okay.
that'll all be fixed as soon as, like I said, as soon as we get out of there, out of the school, get the kids out, and I get established down here, there'll be a little bit of change, so all that stuff is forthcoming.
Okay. For right now, though, is that phone, Mr. Leary? That phone, is it still active for right now? Should somebody
Yeah, but
need
nobody
it?
there to answer us.
No, I know, but that phone, what I'm talking about is the outside phone. That outside phone, when you pick it up, it goes directly to the sheriff's department.
Yes, it is.
And it's still active. So can we keep that active until they are actually here in
We
Crescent?
certainly will.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. We appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to move to general business. Mr. Leary, do you want to start this off with the IT president?
Yes, Madam Mayor, at the, one of the first things that, I found is when I came in, to the interim city manager position was our lack of, IT coordination, hardware, software, and security. And so, at the recommendation of the sheriff's office, they recommended their IT consultant, who's here tonight, with IT, his Inspire Technologies, and he's going to make a presentation to the commission about what they can help us with. So,
Good evening.
Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Gordon Digman. I work with Inspire Technologies and oversee this area for my company. So Mr. Leary contacted me the other day, said that you guys had some items you'd like me to look at. So we met briefly and kind of did a cursory overview of city IT as a whole. We identified a number of things that we think we can help with, things that we can help remediate. You guys have an outstanding number of which that some things that are pretty easily resolvable, but some other things that need a little bit of work to just get things up and running a little smoother for the city. And so we, my company's been around for about 20 years, but in this area, we've been here for about 5 years. We do IT in the sheriff's office. We do IT for the city of Palatka, with the gas authority here, so we're pretty ingrained in this area. We have a few people who live in this general vicinity. Mark, one of my employees, works right down the road from here. It's one of the things that Mr. Leary and I talked about was setting up potentially a regular schedule that happens to be some environmental stuff. But I can kind of go through some of the technical stuff, but and we can dig into that as deep as y'all would like to. But before we get too deep into that, a number of the things that from a security standpoint that need to be tackled very quickly. You guys are missing some antivirus and some a firewall and a few other security items. There seem to be some of the biggest items to address pretty immediately. A number of things, like I said, that can either improve efficiency, security. We can kind of run, like I said, we can kind of run through all the items on the agenda. Biggest thing is it doesn't appear that there's any regular maintenance on the equipment. You guys have some older equipment that needs to get replaced from a security standpoint, and just generally some things that need to be addressed. And like I said, we have a contract written out. I don't want to be verbatim. It covers a number of services that we provide. So we have a help desk line that we have set up initially, so that when people are running into simple issues, password resets, any type of issue that their computer may not be starting out correctly, that kind of thing, that we have set up so that they can call in and they can talk to our support technicians on the phone and answer questions and get things fixed remotely pretty immediately. And then if we need something fixed on site, like I said, we have a few people in the area that kind of address some of those issues. Our group has about 50 people total in it, and like I said, in this area specifically, we have 4 people currently active. That said, like I said, the contract is written out from the scope of work, from services, and from all the equipment we recommend. But I kind of leave it open ended to you guys if you have any questions on my company or any of the services we have written out here.
Do you have any questions? Okay, you want to start us off, Commissioner Burton?
Yeah, I kind of looked at this contract and a little disappointed when you say we have some hardware that we need to replace. I don't see that anywhere where your recommendations are anywhere in this, what you've provided us. You've just provided us basically with, and I don't plan on that being part of you supplying that, but it would be nice to know what else we would have to buy, you know, in order to get all this to work as well. But I did notice that you have a lot of Cisco. You have the Firepower 1010 Next Generation Firewall, the Cisco Secure Firewall Small Business Edition, Lite, and you have the Cisco Smart Net Total Care Extended Service Agreement, 3 years. And just looking at all that and going online, because that's what I do. Most all of this, once you install it, Cisco kind of helps you maintain it. In other words, it's all guaranteed for 3 years. If you have an issue with it, you call Cisco. They actually have a hotline that you can call and get support from Cisco. I just want to kind of bring that out. And the total here, I'm guessing that what you're doing here and on top of this is actually installing this for us for this total of $1,278.85.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're going to install it for that price, correct?
So we have a few, and I can go line item by line item if you'd like, if that would make it easier.
Well, let me just finish and then you can go ahead and finish trying to sell me. So anyway, once we get it installed, okay, we now have monthly subscriptions.
Yes, ma'am.
And I came in, I asked today rather quickly, I have to admit, I was a little quick on this question, but the Office 365 monthly subscription is $20 for each, I guess for each 17 is 17 times 20. Is that what I'm getting for this $340?
Yes, ma'am.
And why is that? When I can get Office 365, I can go online and buy one, okay, that license 5 desktops. So for $20 a month. So I'm not really sure. I didn't understand why we were paying $20 for 17, 20 times 17.
Sure.
When you really should be able to say $20 times 4. Okay.
Would you like me to respond at the end or individually?
In the end, okay. And then one last thing, the as far as the antivirus, you actually are kind of right in the ballpark for what that cost can be. So I guess where I'm going now is the managed IT service contract that you have here, along with you install it, the subscriptions, and then on top of that, monthly for you to manage this, the contract would be $2,200 every month. Okay, and I kind of went through for what we were doing, and I'll go ahead and let you talk now. I'll go ahead and give you the.
Sure. All right, so we'll address
Yeah.
items as we kind of mentioned. So from a hardware standpoint, the Cisco firewall is one of the primary things that you guys need from a security standpoint for access to the outside. What a firewall does, just like a physical firewall, an IT firewall provides differentiation from your internal network to the external network. Currently, you guys are getting a straight internet connection from your internet provider, and you don't have anything barring any type of malicious programming, any type of malicious phone hacking, any of that kind of thing that allows direct access to your organization. So that's what the physical device does. Under software for both of these Cisco things, you have two things. Number one, you have the license for the firewall itself. So Cisco is one of the biggest companies in IT from a hardware software standpoint. So you have to license all their devices. That's what the top line item is. The second line item, you're correct. It is a service agreement with Cisco, but number one, it's a warranty for the device. So it's just 3-year warranty in case there's any failure for the hardware. So number two, from a service agreement, we have plenty of people in my company that are Cisco certified. I can list all kinds of Cisco certifications. We don't call Cisco for help. What that, like I said, what we use that is surely for the warranty status. So if that's something that you don't like, we can look at taking that off. Like I said, mostly from.
Well, no, I like it. Don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying, and actually, we need everything, we do need the firewall. We do need the software where all of a sudden I'm getting a little bit a little antsy. I like the idea that you would install the hardware and then install the software. The monthly subscriptions and stuff, though, I think we need to, I think it's a bit much for,
Well, sure, I'll get there. I'll get
Okay.
there. So continuing with the Cisco, it also includes 50 VPN licenses, which VPN is just a complicated way of allowing people from outside the organization to be able to access files and anything else from inside the organization, application access, accounting software, whatever you need.
right,
Mr. Leary and I talked about, you guys have some remote workers, either out in the field, looking at water meters, whatever the case is. It would behoove them significantly to be able to access the software that they have inside this organization when they're working out in the field. That's another thing that one of these Cisco advisors will allow them to do. So that's from a hardware and software standpoint, that's what the firewall's doing. Monthly subscription. All right, so Office 365 it's kind of a complicated thing. It includes a myriad of different license types, but what the primary thing that Office 365 provides you is email that's hosted by Microsoft. That's the main service product. Everything else is additions onto that. And you're correct. Those licenses are cheaper. It's one of the cheapest items that Microsoft offers from a monthly standpoint. And that can run from $4 a month up to $65 a month per person based on usage of that type of license. What we quoted here for $20 is it includes the full Office product suite.
right.
So Microsoft has increased that price pretty significantly in the last number of years, but roughly the numbers work out so that if you were trying to buy Microsoft Office, the product set itself runs $500 to $600 per individual for the flat fee cost. For $20 a month, in addition to the hosted email. So by hosting the email outside the organization, you don't have to worry about the power going out here, the internet going out here. The internet's always going to work because Microsoft's data center is in 27 cities across the US and a number of others across the world. It doesn't really go down. We use this for almost all of our clients at this point. It's pretty standard operating procedure. What the additional license includes is the Microsoft Office product suite itself. So this is Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint. When I was walking through looking at some of this stuff with Mr. Leary, a number of the computers in the organization are running Microsoft Office from 2007. They're 14 years behind in some of these Office products. And frankly, they just don't work in compatibility with a lot of the new stuff out there. They've changed a number of different ways that the programs are accessed. And so not going too much into nitty gritty of it. The software that you guys are running right now, if you try and save it and send it to somebody else, they can't open some of the files because the files are too old, and vice versa. You can't open their files because their files are too new. So this license itself brings you up into compliance and allows you to work with everybody else. Now, to address the specific question you had, yes, an individual is allowed to license five computers per individual license, but that's an individual. So you specifically are allowed to work on 5 different computers with Microsoft Office installed. That doesn't give you permission to install Office here, there, and there, and then allow him to work with your license. Microsoft is extremely strict with their licensing, and if they do an audit, they charge somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $15,000 per offense.
So what you're saying, just stop right there. So I can't take that license and put it on 5 different computers.
You can, but you're the only one that's allowed to use it.
I'm the only one allowed to use that.
Yes, ma'am. That's why we are charging 17 licenses. There's 17 employees for the city, so there's 17 licenses for that cost.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
and you're saying that's $340
Per year.
That's a month, correct?
Yeah, I'm sorry, per month for all the individuals, yes.
Okay, well, it doesn't kind of come out, it doesn't look that way when the way that you kind of put it here, but go ahead, I'm listening.
Yeah, so that's a monthly subscription for that. Like I said, that includes all the products that for Microsoft. And then antivirus, like I said, we looked at all the computers. That number can be plus or minus depending on if we add additional laptops, that kind of thing to the organization, but that's what the cursory number that we figured out when we were doing the initial walkthrough.
Okay,
So the managed IT service contract, like I said, that is just general service. That's any type of ticketing you guys are putting in, that's documentation for all of the devices that you guys have here. It's looking at additional items that we haven't addressed yet. One of the things I talked to Mr. Leary about is currently you guys are backing up the entire city's data to a USB drive that's held within the same walls of the organization. Currently, if a fire breaks out right now, you guys don't have any backups of your software. The city accounting software would catch up. You wouldn't have any backup to that. Same with any of the water equipment. There's a myriad of different software that you guys are running. You don't have backed up anywhere else. So one of the things that we talked about is you guys are already working pretty closely with the sheriff's office. Like I said, we work there. I already talked to the sheriff. He said initially you could potentially back your data up there. But long-term, what I would like the city to look at doing is looking at offsite backups in a location that's not here. So if a hurricane comes through, knocks out Crescent City, Palatka, any of the regional area, you have a full encrypted set of all the data for the city hosted offsite somewhere. Like I said, that's not in this initial cost set. We can talk about that later, but the big thing is the current backup situation is just not sustainable. So there's a number of things that we're going to address pretty quickly. The file server right now that you guys have is not set up for joint use for multiple users. There's not an easy way to transfer files back and forth. Currently, it looks like a lot of people are sending files back and forth on a USB drive that they manually have to hand to each other. You guys have a dedicated server, a fairly new server that from a file sharing standpoint will be more than sufficient. And then current, like I said, you also have, none of the computers are joint, so everybody has to have their own login at each single computer right now. A network as a whole, from a corporate standpoint, you should have what's called Active Directory. It's a joint directory system that will allow you to log into any computer in the organization to be able to work from anyone. You don't have that right now.
Mhm.
So there literally has to be 25 accounts set up in every single computer. And then there's a number of other items. Like I said, one of the big things that Mr. Leary mentioned earlier is we're looking at cutting the phone lines to the police department. Currently, you guys are not using any of the phone lines over there inside the police department, not the phone that's outside. You guys were talking about earlier, but inside there's a number of phones that are just, you're paying for the monthly service and it needs to be cut. You're not using it. And so, that depending on how many phones, you could be looking at $50 to $200 per line. And if you're looking at 10, 15 lines, those are things that we can help identify from a cost savings standpoint. In a number of smaller cities that we've worked in, the monthly service that we have, we've been able to recoup looking through other services that you guys are paying for and not actually receiving service currently, or it's just not in use anymore. So there's quite a few things from the service standpoint. Like I said, that's not even counting the regular IT service of being able to call, get immediate help with any of the computers that need help. If your computer breaks down, something you'll be on site to work on, and if you need a printer moved or added, joint printing, there's a number of things that my company does from an IT standpoint, working on the wireless, working on feedback from the microphones during city commission meetings. There's a lot of things that we can help with, that we help, like I said, the city of Blackham with, we help the sheriff's office with.
So,
Commissioner Banks,
I'm good with it.
Commissioner
And I think,
DeVito.
one question,
Wait a second. Commissioner
Yes, sir.
DeVito.
this price,
Mhm.
that's the bottom line.
Yes, sir.
well, and that's that's a thing that, that's a little tough. I mean,
Let's let Commissioner DeVito. Commissioner DeVito, you have the floor.
Yes. I had some questions before I came. I'm trying to pick and choose. You answered some. I think one question that I had before I came, I think the document that you gave us says that your normal working hours are something like 8 to 5.
Yes, ma'am.
So where does that leave us, for example, with our 24/7 departments, like the utilities? And also, our commission meetings are 6 and after, as well, planning and zoning, and who knows what else. So if something occurs after 5 o'clock, where does that leave us in terms of your availability and this price?
So this is a standard contract template. This is what we just wanted to get something in front of the city to address. All of that stuff can be hammered out in the individual items of the agreement. We work with north of 60 law enforcement agencies across the state at this point, so we have a 24/7 help desk service. Like you see in the contract, it says we have a 2-hour response time. A lot of times, it may not say it specifically in this contract, but we address all issues after hours. Like I said, we have guys working full-time, 24/7, so it's one of the things that just inevitably we answer. If you would like that specifically called out in the contract, we can certainly address that. City commission meetings, we generally don't go to unless there's a specific reason that we're requested to.
Right.
If you would like us to, we can certainly look at adding that as well.
Well, I'm not saying that you should be here, but if we have an issue,
Oh, absolutely.
then, I just wanted to clarify that the price is not necessarily just for 8 to 5 services.
Correct.
because obviously if there was gonna be extra charges somewhere, that would make a possibly significant difference. So probably that should be clarified in the future.
Absolutely.
If we go with this, and then can you give us an idea, the managed IT services for the $2,200? I mean, essentially, how do you estimate that amount? How many hours do you anticipate that we would be needing help? And do you have, like, do you build, kind of a basic cost into that?
Yeah, so and that's kind of, I mean, that's our business model. We don't release how we do those numbers, but yeah, it's based on number of people that are involved, number of computers involved, number of servers involved, the current status of all of those, so how old some of the equipment is, whether we're gonna have to replace it all, has to do with the current network infrastructure. So we didn't go into much of this, but the network infrastructure includes switches, which is your distribution of internet access to all the computers. It includes the wireless equipment, any of the AV equipment that we'll be responsible for. It includes management of the phone system, management of the backups, management of your firewall, remote capabilities. All of these things play a part into how much, how the price is dictated.
Oh, okay. So basically you just look at us and you figure out what you would do it for.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think that's pretty much what I have for you. So thank you.
Is there any way that we can, I mean, it sounds like, we've been using this system for a long time, the one that's already here. And I think the real deal, and I just kind of need an answer to this, but the real deal is we need a firewall. And we need a firewall for a lot of different reasons. But all the rest of the stuff, we seem to kind of have, and I know we have to update a lot of it. We have to kind of bring things together and everything. But from an initial standpoint, for the budget, going towards September, okay, September is a new budget for us, where we could actually take a look at it and really, I would like to get a little better list of what else we need and what that cost actually would be, instead of just a general $2,200 a month type of deal. Would it be possible for you to go ahead and install the firewall and the software for the firewall and allow us some time to, give us a list of what we need so that we can actually come up with a kind of a better budget so that we will all understand what we need to spend to make this a premium prime thing.
We can certainly talk about that. At the end of the day, I'm not the one that makes the final decisions on that. We generally don't do hourly work. I'll tell you that. We have gotten almost exclusively away from doing hourly work. We do monthly contractual work with all our clients. Problem with that is you have, then you start talking about hourly work and doing project costs like that. Like I said, we try to get away from that as much as possible.
Okay.
But that's certainly something I can speak to the owners of the company about and see if that's something that they would be interested in. Mr. Leary, I'll be honest, Mr. Leary addressed the monthly recurring price immediately when he saw the contract, and on behalf of the city has already negotiated down. And the owners of my company don't want to go any lower to the point where this is the bottom line. The price has already come down on the contract before you guys have even seen it. So this is the bottom line. Like I said, the only thing we did not address in here specifically, and it's because I already talked to the sheriff, trying to make this as bare bones a contract as possible, was setting up your backups at the sheriff's office at no additional cost for you. And the immediate concern, because I know September 30 is budget, and that makes it New Year's a little easier to swallow with some of this other stuff. So this is bare bones, about as small as we recommend for everything. But yes, I mean, if you would like to look at getting the firewall installed immediately, I mean, like I said, the problem is your antivirus is kind of all over the place. There's a number of things. Backups, antivirus, and firewall are the biggest things that I recommend to almost every institution that we work with. You've seen the news. I mean, you just saw it just recently, the gas lines getting encrypted.
Well, yeah, and I understand, believe me, I understand all that, and I certainly wouldn't want to be ransomed for something here, but, if we get the firewall, and actually, I do believe in the antivirus, but the rest of it, I think that we as a commission and as a city, we just need to really understand everything, more, what exactly we kind of need that we can actually budget, okay, this coming year to do it kind of right, rather than kind of do this. I feel like we're kind of doing this on the fly a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Well, and I told him that, the original price was significantly higher. I'm wondering if the commission would give me the opportunity to work with the consultant to come up with a contract for now through the end of this fiscal year, and then we can come back in the new fiscal year and do a continued corporate. Would you think the company be interested in that?
We can propose all types of options,
Okay.
sure, anything you like. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not the one that gets to make that final call, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, this is, like I said, from what we're looking at, this is pretty bare bones. I mean,
The other thing, Mayor and Commissioners, is that if you look at it, once we get everything in place, the $2,200 a month for a year is $26,400. You couldn't hire an IT person, even part-time, to do that. And fortunately or unfortunately, we're in a whole different atmosphere from, a security standpoint, and a number of things that we're doing now, trying to move forward with, eliminating as much paperwork as possible, going electronically. I'm not saying that I'm advocating, that's your decision, but I think when you look at it from that standpoint, and that most agencies, government agencies, have either a full-time or part-time IT person, but y'all give me direction, I'll be glad to see what we can negotiate and bring back to you at the next meeting.
And Commissioner Banks, you had a question. Do you still have a question?
No.
Okay.
You answered my question.
Commissioner West,
But I have one also.
okay.
You're guaranteeing with this that nobody hacks us, nobody holds us ransom. We're safe.
so I'll tell you straight up what I tell every single client. There's no bulletproof solution. There's a number of layered security solutions that you can do. This is the minimum of what I would request from your organization for us to give serious consideration. If you did not look at doing offsite backups and having antivirus and getting a firewall in place, I can tell you probably would not work with the city. It's too much of a liability from our standpoint, not even from a monetary standpoint, but from a publicity standpoint. We deal with over 100 municipal clients across this state alone. We've never had a single one hacked, I'll tell you that. And like I said, we have a number of different solutions, a number of different ways that we prevent that from happening. There's no guarantee. I can't make any guarantees. But what I can promise you is if we get the proper backups in place and they're encrypted and they're removed off site, that we would not have to ever pay a ransom. That data, there might be some downtime involved, and we would have to take the server down, and the city might not work for a number of hours to get everything back up and running. But I guarantee you that we can get the data back, get it restored, and we would not have to negotiate with any of the cyber terrorists that would be managing that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. That's what I'm really interested in.
Commissioner DeVito?
Yes, the firewall is very important.
Yes.
But when I am thinking of this, to hear that we do not have any off-site backup for any of our departments, for our budget, for our utilities. I remember way back when Hurricane Andrew hit. And when was that? That was decades ago? It was when?
1999.
Right,
Yeah.
remember it. For businesses and law firms, that became a huge issue and a basic principle of operating, that you have to have off-site backup. So I think, just to share with all of you, I think that is very problematic for us. I mean, that's partly a question for Mr. Leary, partly a question for this gentleman. And I actually have a question for Mr. Leary. And I mean, thank you for the presentation. You're very professional, except for Commissioner Burton. I think maybe the rest of us don't know as much about this. So thank you for that. And I have one question.
If you want to ask Mr. Leary, I have a question. I have a
So-
couple of questions. So go ahead,
There.
Commissioner DeVito.
obviously, this is a firm that works in the area. It's a good firm. You've negotiated with them on the price. Is it feasible for us to ask for proposals for, to just let it generally be known in the area that we're looking for proposals? Would that be a wise thing to do?
Well, they're already under state contract, and so we don't have to do that. Their familiarity with the county, with the city, and, it just, and the fact that they are a smaller company in comparison, highly recommended by the sheriff's office and the city of Palaca and the Palaca Gas Authority. So we could always do an RFP, but the longer we wait, the more risk we are under, and the concerns that I have from other areas, which I'll address later under my items. I think it's prudent that we move forward as quickly as possible.
Now, I just have one more thing to say now. This is something that you're gonna come back to. But I am looking at the adjustments that are needed through September 30th. And basically, I believe for the Inspire Technologies contract, if we put that contract together right now until September, and then we revisit that in our next year's budget. Okay, because I do think that this is important, by the way. I'm not trying to give them a hard time or anything. But I see that we have, just for this time to get everything going, through September 30th. I think this dollar amount's a little bit off, but that's okay. It looks like you would spend about $10,296. Is that correct? And that would cover us through September 30th. Get us our hardware, get us everything that we need, and then cover the monthly, the antivirus, the Office 365, and for you to manage it. Does that sound reasonable for us to do that and approve something like that for the time being, or did you want to do it for the whole year? I'm just throwing that out.
Well, I have a question first before if that's okay. Well, Debbie,
Yes.
what are we paying currently for our, do we have subscriptions right now that we're paying for? I found out today on the computer in my office, I don't use it, it's Office 7. So are we still paying for that?
No.
We're not. So we're not paying for, are we paying for any licenses right now? Subscriptions?
I don't think so.
Yes, ma'am, you're paying for your email system.
We are?
The email, yes,
Yes,
but not
you're paying for your
the, not
email
the
license,
office.
Not office licenses,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Okay, so we don't have any office licenses. Okay. And we are extremely vulnerable.
Yes.
I got called on a Friday evening because we're having an issue right now and we don't know if we've been hacked or who's been hacked, but it's through the unemployment. And Debbie and John and I had to come up here on a Friday night. The only thing that we could do was pull plugs to make sure that nobody else could get into the system. And so it's very dangerous. And I know right now we have another computer that looks like there's been some data that's missing from it. So, I mean, I'm the first one to say that, that we need to protect ourselves. Now, this will also, I saw in there, because this is also a concern that I have, is making sure that all the commissioners have a city email address and not our personal email addresses.
That's certainly something we can address. The 17 number, I believe, correct me, Mr. Lee, was that just for the amount of employees in the city, not
No.
including city commission, or was that
It includes, I think the mayor's the only one that has a city.
a city team number? So it would bump that license number up just a little bit, but yes, ma'am, that's absolutely something we could do.
I think that's very important. When and I've gone without a computer at different times and then concerned that somebody was in the computer too. And I've had to use my personal email, and that's a little uncomfortable. We should never mix that up.
Absolutely.
And so I think all of the commissioners, that's very important as well. I would also like to see that as, if we go forward with the suggestion that Commissioner Burton or with what the commission decides to do, that you do an assessment so that we know where we are on our computers
Yeah.
and what kind of an
Mhm.
investment we need to make to bring us where we need to be in order to operate. Poor Karen, I mean, if you send her a document and you can read through some of this in our current package, if you ever send Karen a document and she prints that document, it's all over the place. The spacing is off, and then people think that it's her fault, and it's not, and we try to fix it, and it's just so we just need to, all of the computers definitely need to be looked at. So that would be something, commissioners, that if we go forward with whatever we decide, that that'd be part of it. So, okay.
I'll add to that, we have done independent audits for cities, multiple constitutionals. A lot of that stuff would just get wrapped up and done with the cost of figured out.
Okay.
You can talk to any of the finance directors or CFOs that we work with. I sit down on an annual basis and we work on the budget just like I do any other department inside the agency.
Commissioner,
So I received 3 texts. One was from somebody listening on Zoom that said they can't hear the speaker at the podium. And the other was from somebody in the audience. And I just wondered, would it be a good time for us to ask if anyone from the public had a comment on this issue?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, I
Same.
was talking to the city attorney.
Sure. One person texted me from outside City Hall who's trying to listen by Zoom that says they can't hear much of what the person at the podium is saying. And my other question is, would this be a good time for us to ask if anyone, the public, has a question?
I don't think this
No.
isn't for public discussion. This
Well,
is, we'll have public discussion at the end.
Well, don't we usually take comment on issues that are on the agenda at the time we're discussing them?
No, we're discussing this because this is really a decision that we have to make, what we want to do with our computers here at the city to make our jobs hopefully easier and make sure that everything is secure. That's what this discussion is about.
Yeah, there'll be public comment. We have public comment opportunity at the end.
It's not about if people have problems with, everything out there is different. Everybody has different programs that they pay for, as far as
I
speed and all
understand
kinds of
Okay,
stuff.
okay.
I'm referencing the agenda. The
Mhm.
agenda says, and we do this in prior meetings. It says, public comments on topics not listed on the agenda will be heard at this time during the general public comment time. But it is my recollection in almost every meeting where we are going to make a specific decision that we ask the public if anyone has a pertinent comment on that particular topic. And I have a feeling there's somebody in the audience who might have a comment and might actually know as much about it as some of us do. I mean, we usually do take comment on agenda items. It says so on the agenda.
I'd like to move to actually make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we look at this particular quote that Inspire Technologies has quoted us, but we look at it for the, how many months do we have left? 4 months until September, that we actually move forward. How do I want to put this motion? At first, I wasn't going to accept this, but I do think it's important, so I want to make sure that I put it in the right context.
Commissioner, could your motion be that you give the authority to the interim city manager to work with the consultant and bring back a contract at the next meeting?
Yes.
And I understand where you're going with that, and we're on the same page.
Okay, so, motion is to allow our interim city manager to work with Inspire Technologies to bring back a contract for the,
May 27th.
yes, the May 27th meeting.
That's it.
Okay, I have a motion and I have a second.
And I have one question,
Okay,
discussion. So
discussion.
Let's take a vote.
if there's a motion in a second, so
We
you
have to
can
do
have
discussion.
discussion. So if we contract with you for a 4-month period, and we have you install this particular software that you're recommending. And then we decide to put it out for an RFP. Is this standard software? Would other companies be likely to work with it, or do we become pretty much locked in with you?
For the majority of it, it would be fine. So the Cisco equipment and the contracts tied into that device would be in the city's name, so that would have nothing to do with us after the contract is signed. That's warranty status, right? So Office 365 is tenantless, so we would be management for it, but we could transfer that to any other company. The antivirus, we would have to uninstall because that just rolls out with our software package that we get for everybody.
Okay.
It would be fairly harmless. Yes.
Okay, commissioners, we have a motion, we have a second, let's prepare to vote. Commissioner West?
I kind of don't like the idea of just going through September. I think by the time you come and put all this in and it's all working, I'd like to see a year. Let's work on a year instead of just going to September. Because it's gonna take you some time to put everything in place. I don't know how long, maybe it's a day, I doubt it. And then you're going to be working with people and getting things set up. By the time September rolls around, we're just getting started and rolling. And we're gonna need this. I don't like the price, but I don't like $40 meals either. But the point is, we don't have a choice. I've been hacked at home and held up, and it's terrifying to me. And I don't have anything that's important. We need this, and I'd just rather see a whole year
Okay,
contract.
do we want to,
Well,
Commissioner Burton, you want to amend your motion?
can I just
Yes, sir.
offer a suggestion? That, in my recommendation, that part of what we would bring back in the draft contract is that it would continue through the new fiscal year pending our budget approval. And, that we have the same type of agreement. So we would be doing 4 months, but the intent would be for a year. Yeah, actually to go for longer than a year, because it would be the whole next fiscal year budget.
The whole
So-
next
yeah,
budget
so it'd be
year.
16 months.
And these
that
4
would be
months
the
would give us,
intent.
these 4 months would give us an opportunity.
To see how it goes.
And to see as we go into the next budget year, how much, if we need more, if we need less.
They may come in and say, you have such wonderful staff and we like you so much, we're going to reduce our price.
And they might, they're so easy to get along with. Okay, commissioners, we have a motion, we have a second.
Just one more comment. I understand Commissioner West's concern that we need this, but I think that Commissioner Burton was more on target when she said to commit ourselves only through the end of the budget year and let us have the freedom to evaluate this when we are drafting our budget for the next year.
I believe that's what we're
just
doing.
talked
That's what we're
about.
doing.
That's what we're
Yeah, I
doing.
think that's.
That's what we're doing.
Right.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Commissioners, prepare to vote. I'm gonna do a roll call.
Do a roll call.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks,
All right,
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner DeVito.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the ayes have it.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Calling you tomorrow.
Okay,
Thank you.
at this point in time, we're gonna open up public hearing. I'm gonna take this out of order, if that's okay with everybody, just because one of these probably will move a little faster than the other. So this is our first reading ordinance, case RZ 21-4, DOE 302 Palmetto Avenue, concerning an application to allow for lot to be rezoned residential from commercial.
Madam Chairman, yes, this is been in our process for longer than it should have been. And it's straightforward. The property should have probably always been a zone single-family residential because it's contiguous on 2 sides to single-family residential. And it does meet the comprehensive plan and land development code criteria, and staff recommends approval.
Okay. Gonna open it up. Do we have an additional factual testimony for or against? Is the applicant here? Okay, applicant's not here. Do we have any public input at this time?
Just for information, I went out and looked at it. Kind of like city administrator said, it should be residential anyway. It was set right between the two. I don't like that. Zone like that.
I see no one coming to the podium, so at this time, we're going to close public comment. And we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and for a motion. Anybody have any comments? Commissioner Banks, you've viewed it. I drive by it all the time. I will say that at one point in time, this property was a little disheveled. And the current family that is living there, he works on it constantly and has taken very good care of it. It's nice to see. It's nice to see that. So,
I do have one comment, just this is not the first time that we have found a property that is somehow the zoning is not aligned with the use. This is occurring a few times in residential areas.
okay. Okay, yes, sir. If you will state your name and your address, please. Yes, sir.
My name is Rick Kreider, 436 South Prospect Street. So I'm looking for some clarification because I'm a little confused. We're inviting public comment on some things, but on others, we shut down public comment and just push through a motion. So is there a rhyme or reason to how this works?
No, sir, we always have public comment during the public hearings. And there's opportunity for public comment at the end. We've moved public comment to the end. So there's no, sir.
Well, a public comment pushed to the end and the issue's already been voted through by motion, seconded and approved is kind of the cart before the horse, isn't it?
Okay, well, in this case, on the public hearings, the public has the opportunity to speak. Yes, sir.
Because you're spending city money, but you're not soliciting any feedback from the people that the money's coming from.
Thank you. We'll take that under advisement. Thank you.
Mayor, for clarification, the way most commissions, both city and county work is that unless it is a public hearing, public comments only done either at the beginning or the end of the meeting.
Yeah, speak up.
I understand.
Can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Excuse me.
I couldn't hear you.
I understand, but please. Okay. Do we have a motion on this ordinance?
I move that we, I move that we accept the rezoning of case number RZ 2104 for 302 Palmetto Avenue, allowing for the lot to be rezoned to residential from commercial.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Okay, the ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay. Our next one is going to be the first reading of ordinance 2021-02, an ordinance of the city of Crescent City approving the rezoning of approximately 14.6 acres of property more fully described herein from the current classification of multifamily residential MR-1 to the classification of RV Park PUD and providing for an effective date. At this time, do we have any additional factual testimony for or against? You're gonna give a presentation?
That was my plan.
Okay, that's what we want. And then I will ask, obviously, from the audience, and audience, please, if you have some concerns, we just ask that we speak up into the microphones as best we possibly can. We're doing, our system, like our computers, our system is old, it's antiquated, and we do the very best we can. Sometimes our voices carry, sometimes they don't. So thank you for your understanding.
Good evening, Patrick Kennedy, 114 Central Avenue, Crescent City. I'm here representing the applicant, Tucson Landing, for their proposed rezoning of the property identified earlier. And we'll get more location in a second here. This is the PowerPoint that I also presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission at the first meeting. But want an opportunity to kind of use it to speak to you folks as well. You see one of the key things to look at with a comprehensive plan and rezoning subject to that comprehensive plan is the right project, in the right way, in the right place. That's kind of the key elements to any kind of analysis we're looking at. And as you discussed earlier, here's the location. It's approximately 14.6 acres at the south end of Crescent City. At the end of Prospect Street, where it's the current turn towards the summit. This just gives you the surrounding land use and zoning. It's a mix of immediately north of the property here where the arrow is residential. To the northwest is commercial. To the south is county PUD. There's also some C2 just on the other side of that. And then across the way is county ag. I would say that the county future land use designation is urban reserve. So in the county's future land use ag is considered a holding zone and not a preferred zoning or use category for urban reserve. Until there's something that's going to take place or the owner comes to them, they leave it as the holding zone. And obviously Crescent Lake is to the east. Aerial. What we've done is we just kind of put here in the I guess what I'll call slide format some of the key elements of the analysis that I provided to you folks in the planning and zoning. But some of the things we've done to try to make this proposed use compatible at this location is we've actually meted or exceed the buffering and setback requirements in our proposed development agreement. And you can see here, and we'll get into the site plan a little bit more, but the corner side, which is the northern boundary, we have a 50-foot setback and a vegetative buffer within that setback, as well as screening, and we'll also get into that a little bit. But the policy code references where these either meet or exceed are indicated in the third column there. Our wetland setbacks will meet at least the minimum standards, and in many locations will exceed it. And as you'll see later on in the presentation, the wetlands are fairly minimal. They're shoreline wetlands and easily avoided with this development, given the slopes and the proposed layout. Again, 50-foot buffer to the north, 20-foot buffers to the west and south. And then driveway separation, which was a concern on Prospect Street. There is a driveway, a residential driveway right in that corner. And will be driveway, secondary driveway, which we're looking at doing for this project, will be 150 foot plus from that location. Just wanted to put up here under section 3.413(1)G of the city's land development code. PUD is obviously recognized form of zoning to deal with unique situations. And the planned new development district is permitted within all land use categories shown in future land use map and comprehensive plan in the city's code and in the city's comprehensive plan. Traffic analysis, that's one of the biggest concerns, obviously, that people had when they heard of this project. One of the first things that the proposed developers did, the initial project was looking at accessing from Prospect Street. We had a meeting with the folks from Florida Department of Transportation and found that we could have a reasonable access from 17. So that's where they moved. That's one of the first things they did was move the proposed primary access to Highway 17. So it'll be about 400 to 500 feet south of the intersection of Junction and Summit. And you'll see that in the site plan at the end. But we did that AM, PM, peak.
Like, how many feet from the intersection?
It has to be a minimum of 440 feet according to DOT. So it'll be somewhere after 440 feet, wherever it makes the most sense.
Okay.
Here we had average daily traffic 554 with the PM and AM peak hours. short version of that is, when you look at the level of service, and they're kind of small here, I apologize. But there's a more than sufficient capacity in the roadways going north and south of this location. DOT actually concurred, and our meeting with them, actually, their numbers were, their ADT was actually a little lower than mine. But even with my number, they said no traffic study is required as far as their concerned. Which was part of the reason it made it a reasonable, affordable solution for developers. The other big ones, noise and lighting. And these provisions, the lighting is current. The noise is something that we discussed at length with the neighbors. One thing that was in the prior planning and zoning commission meetings, one thing that's not, and this is in paragraph DC2 of the development agreement, but we did agree that there would be no live music at the last, after 10 o'clock at night. The quiet hours are shown to be 11 PM Friday and Saturday, and Sunday evenings when it's a holiday, if it's a Memorial Day weekend or something of that nature, but that live music will still cease if there's live music associated with the restaurant proposed for the property. If there's live music, it would end at 10 o'clock. So that's something we would need to incorporate in the development agreement, but was agreed to by the developers at the meeting, with planning and zoning commission earlier this week. So that would have to be amended a little bit. And we also wanted to point out in that meeting, the city sound ordinance, the decibel levels for residential and commercial are the same after 10 o'clock. 55 decibels is, so it's, at 10 o'clock, they would have to meet that noise ordinance as well, even though they talk about quiet hours. They just want to be able to have the restaurant open to 11 on weekends and give them time to shut it down. People make their way back to their campsites. Here we see another key element to look at for compatibility and consistency, and that's the slopes and the flood hazards. And down here on the shoreline is the flood zone. Again, there are no major structural components, no habitable structures proposed here. Mainly piers will be which will be a part of phase 2 really, but piers for both, both dock, both slips. And some shoreline improvements just to actually beautify and improve the shoreline, but no habited structure. We're out. Habitable structures will be in the flood zone. The slopes, are like all Crescent City from Summit Street down the lake. It comes down, doesn't do too bad right here. As you get closer, it drops pretty quick, and then that's right here at the 5-foot contour line. The BFE was 1 foot above that, so that's basically right where the flood hazard is. It drops off precipitously, and that's one reason why they're not going to try to develop it there, to help it. And that's also where you find the wetlands in the wetlands map that you can see here. Basically, that's the wetlands delineation they had done by Carter Environmental. Kind of glossing over a lot of compatibility things. I don't want to bore you too much. I have a pretty lengthy report here, and I can go through it if you really want to. Just trying to hit the highlights, and then I can take some questions afterwards. But we also want to point out that this will bring visitors to Crescent City, and it will be $4.5 to $5 million in improvements at the end of the day. That was the estimate. I didn't do the math for that. This was done before we had that estimate in place. So just me putting it together, but just looking at the Cherry Blossom campgrounds assessed at $805,000. This vacant land is $277. Obviously, the valuation will be in the neighborhood of $3 to $4 million when they're done. So that will mean significant property tax revenue. We could do the math based off our current millage, but I don't have it handy. It wouldn't be that hard to crank it out if we wanted it. You're looking at an additional minimum $2,000 per month in utility revenue, plus $400 a month that will go in reserves, and $200 a month in utility tax revenue. So you got $31,000 annual revenue for water and sewer utilities. Natural gas, they will do natural gas, but it's hard to know what the actual financial impact will be until they have all their finances figured out. They're gonna have a kitchen, which would be natural gas. They want to do natural gas water heaters, and they want to do a natural gas backup generator that will be needed for the lift station. That's gonna be the- Oh, yes, and dryers. They have laundry, so they want to do gas dryers. Someone whispered that to me back here. Sales and tourist development, sales tax, tourist development tax. These don't come necessarily directly into our pockets, but they certainly come to the county coffers, which we share in, and this allows us to make arguments for sharing that a little more specifically with us, that tourist development tax. The more we bring in, the more we can say, hey, you guys can spend that down here on some events, whatever that's appropriate for that money. But lodging receipts are estimated at 1.5 million a year. That's what their business plan is based off, minimum expectation. So you look at sales tax and tourism development tax receipts of $200,000 annually. What we think is more important, other than obviously compatibility, that's the number one concern everyone here has, that makes sense in this location, but job creation and retail foot traffic. We need some people in Crescent City, visitors. In my tenure here, 14 years, every visiting session you have is we need visitors. We need to market our most significant resource for those visitors, which is Crescent Lake. This project hits all those marks. And it's being done in a way that'll make it a quality development, but also we believe will, there's some concerns in the audience here, but we believe it'll have no negative impact or no negative impact at this location. But it'll increase the demand for places to eat and shop and provide entrepreneurial employment opportunities, but as well as just existing businesses to get foot traffic from this as well. RVers will go to Winn-Dixie because they have the means to provide themselves and their RV sites if they want to. But these are the all these businesses we have here across the city will benefit. And we'd like to see more of those within the footprints that are already sitting here waiting for them. And then this is the kind of where the rubber meets the road, and where most people want to talk about is the site plan. Just to be clear, the development agreement as it's laid out, this is what's called a preliminary site plan. They will be required to come back. They come to the Planning and Zoning Commission, at least the way the ordinances are currently read, for a final site plan review. They don't come to you, but sure you'll be kept in the loop. But there is a final site plan review, which really digs down deeper into the engineering, stormwater, and basically developers agreement says, we're going to follow city rules, water management district rules. We're not asking for any special treatment, but we don't know what that stormwater design is going to be until they know they have the property, they know they have the green light, and then they hire the engineers to drill down on those numbers. But some key elements to point out in the site plan here is the southern access on Highway 17. A key component they already had built into their plan, which DOT was happy to see, obviously, is they've created significant holding capacity in their driveways, so the RVs can get off the highway. Even if the gate's not open, they can still store 4 very large RVs with the largest RVs and with cars in tow can fit in the storage area if the gate happens to be closed. And I think when Gilmore gets up here and explains more about his business plan, he can tell you that the gate will be open during the daytime for the most part, and closed at night, but at a certain hour. And there's additional holding capacity here. I'm sure the Moonshine Lane folks would not mind if they had 12 RVs with cars in tow show up at once, but it's a very rare occasion. But they're prepared for it, and I think that's worth noting. The other, probably most significant concern for some folks at the Planning and Zoning Commission was this northern boundary. That's where the 50-foot buffer is. One of the things that was requested and the developer conceded to was that The screening, which as proposed presently is a vinyl, 8-foot vinyl fence, but the screening would be set 25 foot off the property line. And then in vegetation, natural, and they've asked for native plants. Again, that's when you get down to the specifics, that is a site plan review, but certainly a native vegetation is, I believe it's how it's worded in the development agreement. We should make that clarification here today. That way you have some vegetation that's hiding the fence, but then and also providing more noise barrier and just a nicer look for that boundary there for the residents along that side. They're currently proposed, this again is a preliminary plan, but they have been working with an engineer. Engineer did help them with this, so it's not just made up per se, but you gotta pin down the numbers. But this is a drainage swale. It'll be a dry swale, will not hold water. But that's so that's in the buffer area. And I think a couple of items I wanted to highlight before I close my mouth, unless you have questions for me specifically. I'm going to highlight the changes that were requested by the Planning and Zoning Commission, which we agreed to. First, in the ordinance itself, I want to point out we added language from the first Planning and Zoning Commission to the second, which says, in the event of a conflict between the text of the development agreement and the preliminary site plan attached thereto, the text shall govern. This is a concept. The text had a lot more detail in it. Still not the level of detail you see the final site plan review. But, like for instance, you don't necessarily see that fence exactly where it might need to be. So the words in the development agreement will dictate where that fence goes when it's time for a final review. This is an example. Doesn't, have the flowery shrubs symbols all the way through this project. But again, the development agreement speaks to tree preservation as well as to planting of the landscape buffers. So that's just an example of why that's in there. Then the developers agreement, Planning and Zoning Commission wanted to make certain that the primary amenities were built before they started to lease out RV sites to make sure they're fully committed financially to a good project. So the pool, the clubhouse area that you see here, the restaurant, those are the primary amenities in this section here. They will have to be built before they start renting RV sites. And we agreed to that condition as part of the first phase of development under paragraph C, which is exhibit 1 to the ordinance. The other change we agreed to, no permitted camping. There'll be no tent sites. There will be what's called glamping sites, which is a new trend, and Mr. Gilmore can speak at length about how popular those are. But basically, they're as it indicates in the development agreement, they're safari or dirt style tents, they're heavy canvas. They're kept and maintained by the camp site, the RV resort, not the campers. So they're semi-permanent. There are furniture in them, lighting, furniture. They're just kind of fancy, glamorous camping. So that's what glamping is, a short version. We also promised that in the event of a wind event coming, that those tents would be taken down. And we provided several clarifications that primitive tent camping is not allowed. And, just throwing your bag down the ground, sitting outside. Campsite for that. We also agreed to change the development agreement, planning and zoning level to have an updated wildlife survey at the time of final permitting. And then the big one was, this is where the original plan had the primary access. We made that a secondary access for emergency vehicles only, or obviously in the event that there has to be an evacuation of the campground itself, the RV park itself, and they cannot use this exit. They would be able to use this to exit, but it's not for RVs at all. And then there's a small path for golf carts as well. Because a lot of campers do bring their golf carts with them. We don't want them jumping out on 17 to try to get to town, so we wanted to provide an access there. But it will be designed so that you can't have any cheaters trying to get their cars or RVs through it, obviously. The fire chief also came to the meeting and asked that we have a stronger commitment to the fire hydrants, which we've done again, exactly how many will have to be pinned down, but we committed to providing one right here at the secondary entrance, the closest hydrant along Prospect Street. I hit the spot yet, but it says in writing again, we will do it at that location somewhere. So that'll add a fire hydrant for the Prospect Street residents as well as the park. And then the fire hydrants will be located inside the property. And the fire chief made it clear that there's gonna have to be one every 300 feet within these campgrounds here. So we probably have to have at least 3 on each side. So we're looking at 6 hydrants on the inside. But again, the exact number, we won't know until final site plan. So that's just the nutshell I wanted to give, rather than go through my plan line, my analysis line by line. We'll be happy to do that if that's what you prefer. But would leave it, if you have any questions for me.
I would prefer, commissioners, that we wait until we close public comment to ask questions, and then we can come back up and we can address them.
So I might have my, Mr. Gilmore have an opportunity to give you more of the business plan part of this presentation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Okay then.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Can everybody see it?
I'll do this
For you guys, you can, so
my name's Patrick Ryan Gilmore. I'm located at 14991 Northeast Jacksonville Road in Citra, Florida, 32113. I am the owner of Moonshine Acres RV Park outside of Fort White, Florida, near Pleasant Springs. As Mr. Kennedy's addressed, we're looking to open our second park here in Crescent City. This park will be, first and foremost, is going to be more of a resort than it is an RV park. We still use the phrase RV park because, when it comes to Google and marketing purposes, RV park is searched 10 to 12 times more than RV resort. So that's why we're maintaining the RV park name versus a resort. But this will 100% be a more of a luxury RV resort. With the design at our entrance, we'll have a brick paver entrance, gated entrance. During operating hours, the gates will remain open to allow as many RVs to come in and get off the highway as possible for safety purposes. We do have enough room for staging up to 14 of the largest rigs inside the gate and outside of the gate, off of the highway. All interior roads are going to be asphalt. So it'll be a really good long-term viable option for us. And then about 80% of the interior RV pads will be brick pavers. We'll be using impervious pavers to keep stormwater numbers down. Then we'll have our back end sites will have asphalt milling pads with concrete patios. Overall, with the design of the park, we're going to have nice, large sites. We're not looking to cram as many units in, like packing them like sardines, like a lot of other resorts can do or will do, have done. So they're nice, spacious, 40-foot wide, 70-foot long sites. Our clubhouse will consist of a large, what I call lounge area, not a bar type of thing, but just a general gathering area with a big stone fireplace, pool table, ping pong table. We'll have an arcade for our guests, for children, game room. The restaurant will be about a 60 to 80 seat restaurant. Have an activities building for groups to be able to utilize. We get a lot of RV rallies, the Airstream clubs, the tin can tours that travel in groups, and they like to have a gathering area. So we're going to have the activities building there on the water, close to the water. Of course, the swimming pool, cabana rentals, volleyball courts, large recreation area up in the up in the northwest corner here will be our recreation area. We'll have pickleball courts, basketball courts, other recreational activities for children. Both of the emergency exit here will be gated. The fire department will be provided with a gate code for them to be able to get in, emergency services to be able to get in. The golf cart lane will also be gated, closed at quiet time at night. We just wanted to make sure that, we're not gonna have our guests be on 17. It's illegal first and foremost, and the city doesn't allow it anyways. But we felt this was the best compromise for everybody to minimize any traffic here. There will also be signage at the corner of 17 and South Prospect, no RV traffic beyond this point. To deter any RVs from turning down there. But we feel that with the type of entrance that we're going to have, that it shouldn't be an issue here. We do want to beautify this area. If you're familiar with it at all, there are some really large, beautiful eucalyptus trees that are lined along 17 right there and along this portion of Prospect. We want to be able to clean up under all of those, landscape under them, irrigate it, and really beautify this so that when folks are coming north on 17 into the city, this is the first thing they're going to see. And we want to make a good impression on them. So we want to have a nicely landscaped entrance. And we're going to use the PVC vinyl fence for security purposes along 17 and Prospect Street all the way down. And we're going to run the fence into the water to deter any guests that might be in the water to go around in.
There you go. There you go.
All right. So it'll be all of this area here along 17 and South Prospect will be landscaped, and we're using an 8-foot vinyl fence along the north border into the water to try to deter anybody from, for any reason, wanting to try to go around there. I don't anticipate a whole lot of folks in the water, period, because this is a high bluff, and when you get close to the water, it's an immediate drop. In speaking with our environmental scientists, we're actually going to have to rehab the shoreline and rebuild it to where it was prior to the storms a few years ago that basically washed out about 10 to 12 foot of shoreline. There's 8-foot sheer drops really on that property. There's beautiful cypress trees that we want to maintain, that the roots are just exposed, and it's just a matter of time until they fall. So we want, for safety purposes and everything, all to be able to rehabilitate the shoreline here, and that's something that we're going to have to do once we get into everything with the water management district. We're going to have limited number of RV sites on the water. I think we have 6 here. And then we're going to have some premium cabins facing the water and some glamping tents also in this area. On the board, you can see some pictures of what the glamping tents look like. Another item that we have discussed in previous planning and zoning meetings is, in the event of any named storms coming through, the glamping tents will be dropped for safety purposes so that they don't get taken away. and cause any damage to any neighboring structures. The cabins are also shown in the pictures here I have up front, to show you that we're not talking of, primitive little cabins. These are luxury cabins, RV park model cabins, that are really pretty, actually, so. Getting into Moonshine Acres brand, this is our. It's probably my shaking fingers. This is our clubhouse at our current park. We want to carry on our brand into the Crescent City project. But we're going to build more of a lake house style. I'd like to call it a Southern Living lake house style, something you see on the cover of Southern Living. It'll have wraparound porches, silver metal roof. It'll be within the architectural standards set forth by the city. As far as exterior appearance, the interior appearance will have tongue and groove pine walls and ceilings and beams, structure similar to what you see here. This is our clubhouse. This is our gathering room, lounge area, camp store. We'll have camp store. We'll have laundry facilities. We'll have family style unisex showers, playground, picnic pavilion. This is one of our premium buddy sites. This is a shared private site. We'll have a few of those in the park. Just give you an idea of what our current park looks like, and this is nothing compared to what we're actually going to be doing here. Our entire park used asphalt milling roadways and parking pads. It's something my wife and I built ourselves. I literally went out and dug the trenches and ran water lines and sewer lines and all myself, where this project's going to be about 4.5 to 5 times more of an investment. And it'll be general contractor running everything. And like I said, the asphalt roads and paver pads. So it's going to have a very luxurious landscape package and very luxurious appearance that I feel that the city will be very proud of. Here's more pictures of the glamping tents. They have queen beds, bunk beds, futons, air conditioning, heat, everything but a bathroom, basically. Refrigerator, cured. The cabins and what an interior one of the cabins looks like. What our park will be is what we call a transient park. We're not looking to build a long-term park where people are coming in to live here by the year after year after year, and end up with a unsightly campers that aren't taken care of. We will have institute a 10-year rule with our guests that their campers must be within 10 years old or meet a certain conditional requirement by sending pictures in order to be able to stay with us. We cap our stays to a maximum of 6 months. And that's really geared for the snowbird guests that will be coming down from the north in the winter. They stay the winter, they return home. We're not going to have any on-site RV or boat storage inside the park. That'll be something that they'll have to handle outside of the park. We do have future plans for a fishing pier on the property. That's something that's going to take some time. It's at least a year from what I've heard, dealing with the Army Corps of Engineer and Water Management District and DEP to get permitting to build a dock. So that'll be in that'll be our only phase 2 essentially. So as Patrick mentioned, we vow to build the entire park and not open the doors to the public until everything with the exception of the fishing pier is built. So I think that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll take additional factual testimony that are for or against. Do we have any? No one's coming to the podium. Do we have any public input?
I'm just up here, I'm gonna put up
Okay.
site plan, because that's what you want. So
Okay,
that's all I'm doing. I'm not-
thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Unless you want me to.
While you're doing that, we'll have public comment. We're gonna limit it to 2 minutes. Karen, you have the clock. We ask that when you're 2 minutes, when the clock goes off, you please end your comments.
Okay, I'd first like to ask what the process is. I assume that once we get to an ordinance level, you've made a decision to do something in order to pass an ordinance, is that correct?
No,
No,
No? Okay, so,
and you
I guess-
haven't given your name and address.
oh, sorry, Diane Sykes, 304 Chestnut
thank
Street.
you, Commissioner.
I'm just wondering how you got this information, how the commission got this information presented to them?
It was given to us. It was given to us. Now, I personally, and I haven't disclosed this because we haven't
Oh, yeah,
spoken.
yeah.
I did ask to meet with Patrick and Mr. Gilmore. I had a couple of questions, but the rest of it was sent to us from planning and zoning.
Right.
It went through the planning and zoning.
Okay.
So then I guess my question is, why didn't we follow our own land development code and processes for approval? Okay,
We did follow it.
okay, well, according to the land development code, after the preliminary was approved by planning and zoning was supposed to come to the commission, present their recommendations
That's
and findings.
That's what this is about.
Oh, planning and zoning is here?
I'm planning and zoning.
Oh, I thought that was a commission.
That the commission doesn't come and,
Oh,
they
okay.
make a recommendation to the city commission and the staff makes a recommendation. And they
Yeah,
have all that information, including the minutes from the planning and zoning commission in their packets.
Okay, so what it says in planning and zoning that that planning and zoning has to present to the commission in a public meeting, because that's you're planning and zoning.
Correct.
Okay, my other
he
question,
is
I
staff
guess.
to planning and zoning, just like Mr. Kennedy used to be staff to planning and zoning. So, exactly the
Okay,
same.
my other question is, why did we not advertise according to Florida statute 166.041?
We met the statutory requirement. We published in a paper of general circulation and we mailed notices to all property owners within 400 feet.
Okay, but that statute says that if you are doing a PUD that's greater than 10 acres, you have to have an ad in the paper that's 2 columns by 10 inches wide, like 10 inches long, and it has to include a map of the parcel. So your ad was illegal, just like your last one, this ad.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Beth Roush. My husband and I live at 533 South Prospect Street. This proposed development is slated to be right next door. We are the north boundary there. It runs the length of our property down our driveway into the lake. I've attended and spoken at all 3 of the planning zoning meetings where this company presented their concept. And although it does appear that they've addressed a few of our concerns, which we appreciate, we preferred if the moonshine was shining somewhere else. That's just what I have to say, because I have to just get off my chest and be done with it. But anyway, we've lived here full time for 6 years. At the March meeting, when I and others stated that we were drawn to Crescent City for the peace and quiet, for the charm of the town, we were told by a member of the board that we were being selfish. And I guess because we were relative newbies, that's why we were told that we were selfish. We were taken aback by that a little bit, as you can understand. Why would it matter if we've lived here 3 years or 30, if we just want what's best for the community? My husband and I both have ties to Crescent City that go back 50 years. We both came when we were young, the family, his was on Clifton Road, mine was over on Main Street. We remember and we return for the small town feel and the charm of the town. So what's wrong with wanting to keep it? Sorry, back to the present, or should I say future of Crescent City. After the initial concept was approved in January, my husband and I took the hour-and-a-half drive to Fort Knight, Florida, to Moonshine Acres, after which this will be modeled. They had presented with the board and their big, beautiful pictures. And what we saw when we visited was, well, a far cry from the glossy photos. And I'm sure this will be hopefully different. There, I won't go into all that, but I do have pictures that we did take. There are points to make, like how do we know that they didn't show that what they show here wasn't what they originally presented to the people of Fort White. My husband and I don't believe that this would be aesthetically good or beneficial to our town. And if you take a drive out there to the other park, you'll see what I mean. Then there are the lights, noise, traffic, how do we enforce the quiet times? So much that I could go into, but I think I'll save some breath this time. We just know that this will all definitely affect not just our property, but the neighborhood. If you take a drive down my driveway to the corner of 17 past Quiet Prospect Street, North End, you'll see what I mean. No matter how long we've lived here or where we moved from, we can care about maintaining the integrity and charm of our community, and that's what I hope we'll do. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Rouse. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. For the record, Jessica Gallup, Cosco Law Firm, 149 South Woodford Avenue in Daytona Beach, Florida. I'm happy to be here tonight. I'm here representing two of the adjacent property owners, the Schofields. What I said at planning and zoning the first time we were there, and what I'll say tonight is we're not here to oppose the development. We think that it could be a good project. One of the benefits of a planned unit development is that the applicant and you have the opportunity to bring forward a project that is best for the community and, balances interests. And so we wanted to thank Mr. Gilmore, who's worked with the property owners throughout the process. It's been really great to talk to. We wanted to thank Mr. Kennedy for mentioning that they did make that concession that the live music would end at 10 p.m. If we can get that in the text of the development agreement, that would be awesome. And the main priority that's left, and we've had discussion on this at both planning and zoning board meetings, is the north boundary and kind of the effect of noise on the adjacent property. So we do have that 25-foot buffer. We talked last time where probably about 15 of that is currently treed, and there's 10 feet of room there. There will be a fence. They're proposing an 8-foot fence. We originally requested that be replaced with a masonry wall to help block the sound. They said that might be a little cost prohibitive. And then the discussion at planning and zoning last time was there might be the potential to look at potentially burning that area with some of the fill from the pond they have to build. We're really open to that, even if it's just on, the western portion of the northern property line closest to the homes. It's something we'd like to see discussed and maybe played out before second reading to see if that's plausible. And I think that would address their concerns on noise. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for working with the applicants. Next speaker.
Like Sarah, when you get there, it's sweet. Lawrence Coleman, 517 Grand Avenue, Crescent City, Florida. I just have a couple of questions. At the last meeting, I asked about the Veterans Day Parade, and subsequently, some of the, no face mask and all of that there. I need to know now so I can go forward. Can I plan this Veterans Day Parade?
Okay, Mr. Coleman, can I ask
I don't
you?
know if this was.
No.
This guy's back time, right? No? Oh, can I go back? I go to the back.
We'll call, okay, you go, and we'll call you when it's time.
Okay, excuse me. I thought it was, general comments.
No, just.
We'll call you, we'll call
My
you.
bad, my bad.
We'll call you. No, you're fine. Now at least we know what you want to talk to us about. You gave us a preview. We appreciate that.
Okay.
We appreciate that. Do we have any other public comments?
Rick Kreider, 436 South Prospect Street, Crescent City.
Yes, sir.
I also looked up what the law says about notifications relative to planning and zoning changes. I live 2 dwellings down from this proposed development. I did not get any notification. I was told that Crescent City doesn't post a sign, even though Florida law talks about it. Crescent City decides that they're kind of above the law, I guess, in certain ways, and so they do things a little differently. But I never got a letter, never got any kind of notification. And I'd also like to second what's already been said, that as a group, the citizens that showed up here to talk about this planned development were treated disrespectfully by the Planning and Zoning Board by how we were categorized and canceled. And so I think that that's your department, there's some things that you need to address, but
I don't, the commission appoints the planning zoning commission and they serve as volunteers. And I don't control what they say.
okay, well, thank you for that clarification. So the commission then has some homework to, maybe your folks need to go through some active listening courses or something, but being told that we've only been here a minute when many of us have brought millions of dollars into this community and improved properties to be diminished to a fact that I wasn't born here. And we were told we need to be more accepting of other people. Well, perhaps some of these people need to take a dose of their own medicine and be a little more accepting of people from the outside who have done things to enrich this community instead of take away from it.
Thank you, Mr. Kreider. We appreciate that.
Hi, it's Patricia Lang, and I live at 255 South Prospect Street. I've been RVing for over 40 years. This upsets me greatly, and I find it difficult to talk, so I hope you can understand me. All I see is concrete and people, lights, noise, and I don't see a few things on here that RVers need. One is a dump site, unless it's dry camping. But if somebody's gonna live there for 6 months, that's not an RV park, that's a different kind of situation. I don't know if you let class A's in there. That's probably what you want anyway. They need a lot of room to fool around. You can rent RVs. RV is the thing today, and these people have no idea what they're getting into or what they're doing. They dump their stuff. They make garbage, they make noise, they have lovely dogs, sometimes cats. But they need a lot of room and they make a lot of noise. And if you don't have the setup for the electricity and everything out there, because I don't see anybody mentioning any of that, they need 50 amps, they need 30 amps. If they don't, they have generators for that air conditioning and the sound is deafening. And people are, I hate to say it, but they're quite slovenly. And they put their garbage out and their bicycles and they hang their underwear and their towels. So unless this RV group, this group has strict laws, you could be looking at a real mess. I feel sorry for the people at the end. That beautiful land with all the trees and those houses and that other Brad who just bought that land over there, to have this sitting in their yard. What happened to the trees in Crescent City? What happened to the quietness? And don't get confused by the picture of the big RV riding, because what you're missing is there's not a tree in there and there's not a piece of grass. It's flat and it'll fill up with rain, it'll drain into those little pools that he drew here on the side. And if you don't have trees out in the street, you're gonna be looking at those little cabins. So it's not really a pretty sight. He talked about the, what do you call it? The big sign. What kind of big sign is it? It's gonna have lights. You're gonna have lights around this park. It's gonna be pitch black. I saw your tenants, they had all kinds of lights on. So I don't know if you really know what you're doing here. Because all I heard was $31,000 and something about bringing taxes and something about bringing jobs. But the whole thing falls through. What are you left with? A slab of concrete? And it's just derelict stuff? I just think it's a shame. But that's what the city thinks Crescent City needs. I don't think so. And I don't particularly like it here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We have any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Tina Glenn, 325 South Prospect Street. And after listening to the presentation, it looks lovely, and I hope it is lovely and that they fulfill all of their wishes. But they're going to be making money at our expense. And I want to know how they plan on reinvesting some of that into Crescent City. Do they plan on supporting sports teams? Do they plan on supporting the library? They're taking our peace and quiet, making money. I think we should expect something in return.
Thank you very much. Do you have any other public comments?
Scott King, 721 Lemon Avenue. I wasn't gonna say anything tonight, but man, this town's dying. Anybody trying to make a dime in this town, sitting back behind me, you're probably going out of town to do it, or you brought your money in with you. We're dying here, people. We kicked out the Walmart center, wouldn't let that happen. Just about any plan or program that comes along, we all cry about how terrible it's gonna be. Now, we got a fella here behind me who wants to spend a bunch of money. He's not gonna make any money off of us. He's bringing money in. He's building something in a unimproved area. The house is next door. That does stink, I must admit, but unfortunately, we're in a place right now where we need the jobs, we need the income, we need something. Drive around. Drive around. We have more empty buildings than full. Man, this is a chance for us to actually to get what we want. We want people coming into town, dropping their cash and getting the heck back out of here. And that's what these folks are gonna do, okay? Man, look at most RV parks. Heck, the one here just north of town, it's an old one in disrepair. I drive by it. I don't drive through it. It could be full of trash. I don't know, don't care. I don't see it. It's not a city road. It's not my problem. My problem is out here where I can see, and when I can see, no RV park is making us ugly. We're making us ugly. We are the problem. We've got to clean up. So, man, we got a few jobs coming. We got some money coming. Probably got some people that are gonna maybe build a house or something so they can live here and run the place. You just don't know. There's tons of money coming from this project. And those of us that are still trying to make a living need it. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Do we have any other public comment at this time? Yes, sir.
Yeah, how many jobs?
Can you, sir, can you come to the podium? Sorry. They have to get your name and,
All right, Rudy Costello, 725 Rocky Lane.
yes, sir. Mr.
I have one question for the man on the other part. How many jobs will it bring to this community? Because as you know, we have the highest unemployment rate, we have the highest amount of single mothers on unemployment, and the highest amount of this one. And what other type of jobs will it bring from, say, if you have partners or shareholders or vice versa? Because I know how that works.
Yeah, we don't really have any partnership availability or anything like that, but you're looking at anything from maintenance positions, housekeeping, restaurant, waitressing.
And also I used to own a van, used to be silo labor. I know RVing is very hard, it's very power consumption. And this being a poor area, a lot of people here that live in Putnam County don't have RVs or whatever. And to fill up an RV or a motor vehicle like that or a truck is about $200 just to take it 8 blocks.
Yeah.
And how can it make money in this area when people don't have it?
The business will be bringing in people from all over the country. So
How can you guarantee that your home, you don't even have jobs here, and there's a lot of businesses that aren't thriving?
there is a vast deficit of RV sites in the state of Florida.
Oh, I know that.
That's how we bring people up.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other public comment at this time?
Mayor, I should have at the beginning asked for a roll call on ex parte
Okay.
communications with anyone. Commissioner Burton, did you have any prior to the meeting with the client or anyone pro or con?
I
I do not.
Okay, Commissioner Banks?
No, but I did do some riding around
Okay.
in the area, and just checking out. And
That's fine.
I failed to go down that last, go around that curve and come back out on 17. I think the first person came up with a 533 Prospect Street, South Prospect. I didn't know whether nobody lived down there or not, but I was kind of weird about going down there because I felt like.
Come on down.
Miss Rouse lives at the very end. She's down that long driveway.
Okay, Commissioner DeVito, if you have any partake in this?
Well, no one has really explained to us what ex parte communications
That
are.
would be communications with anyone for or against the rezoning prior to this meeting.
So people have asked me about the process and who do they contact, and I have directed them to City Hall.
That's fine.
Planning and zoning.
Only on the project itself. Commissioner West?
No,
Okay. Mayor Meyer?
just in preparation, I met with,
Yeah, we met with the city
Yes.
attorney for
Yes.
full disclosure. You, myself, and the city attorney met with the attorney for the developer and the developer. So, okay, and then two other clarifications, or one clarification and then a staff recommendation. The advertisement was started. We've had 3 planning and zoning commission hearings on this project, including this week on Monday. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval 4-0 to the city commission. The staff in its review, and I'll have to give Mr. Kennedy a lot of credit, and he is also a land use planner, did an excellent job. It meets all the criteria of the city's adopted comprehensive plan, and it can meet all the land development code requirements. And I'll be working directly with our staff as we go to final site approval that will have to then be before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they will do that. So, thank you.
okay, thank you. I'm going to ask last time, do we have any other public comments? Okay. I see no one coming to the podium. At this time, we're going to close public comment, and I'm going to bring it back to the commission for discussion and for a motion. And remember, this is an ordinance. This is the first reading. This will come to a second reading, as will the other one, and we'll hear those. I believe we're scheduling those May 27th. Okay.
I just want to say, Mayor, please, I'm not an avid camper. I don't like to camp, but my family does, so I'm dragged. What happens is when you're next to a camper that's like from here to you, I'm sorry to point at you, and it's at night, I got, oh, geez, they're out there around their campsite and I want to go to sleep. I don't hear them. I never have. And I think the reason is most campers are very aware that their noise is going to disturb someone close to them, so they are very quiet. I've never had a situation, and I'm sure it's there, but I've never had a situation where the noise from another camper disturbed me. You're so close together, I think they're probably very aware that they have to be quiet, and the time limits. You know, 10 o'clock, no music, whatever. I just think, and really nice RV parks like Disney, the Swanee River Musical Park, excuse me, and they're large. And also the one in St. Augustine that goes from the coast to the beach. They're very, very nice. They're clean, and people are respectful of one another. When you have $200,000 camper or a RV move in, that's not trash. That's not trash, people.
Okay, do we have any other?
Yes.
Okay,
I'd like
Commissioner
to just
Burton?
talk for a minute. We have to remember that we're voting to change from a it says it right here, a multi, where is that, family residential to an RV park PUD. And in all honesty, Crescent City, a lot of the residents here in Crescent City have been talking about ecotourism. If we leave this a multi-family type residential area, that really could become a lot of different things. And chances are, it may not become quite like an ecotourism type thing that we're looking for here in Crescent City. Whereas an RV park kind of fits. It just fits with where we would like to kind of bring Crescent City. So I just want to remind everybody what we are actually looking to do here tonight is to take it from a multifamily residential MR1, and what we're kind of voting on is to change it to the PUD. So that's really what our object is here tonight. I just want to remind everybody about that. And just remind that one way or another, something's going to happen with that property. And I hate to say that, but it will. Something will happen with that property, and hopefully Crescent City can manage that. That's all I have to say.
Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Banks?
No, but I just want to complete what I was talking about. I did check KOA, which is adjacent to the city. And I checked the one north of Winn-Dixie. Now they keep those parks very neat. And new owners purchased KOA, and you ought to see the improvement that they did on that park. And if you go south of Crescent City, there's another park, kind of similar. It's not going to be on the style what this was going to be. To me, this park is going to be uptown, an uptown park. So if you just go over to, and I'm just using these scenarios, if you just go over to Brooklyn, go over there and race week and see all those big Winnebago coming there, those people got money. And they're doing a lot of shopping right here in Winn-Dixie and Crescent City. They're bringing money down here in Crescent City. So to me, it's a plus, and we need something to get this town a boost. We really do. No job, and yet still we get a complaint. Well, when our kids finish school, they leave away from here. Why? Because they ain't got no opportunities here. So we got to look at that. We got to look at all angles of it, you know? So really, I think it's a blessing. Plus the city gonna make revenue. And Lord knows we need it. We're at the top of our tax structure now. So.
Thank you. Commissioner DeVito?
Yes, I have quite a few questions. But Patrick Kennedy does great work. I know he's presented in his capacity as planning and zoning director, and he does very detailed work.
Okay, do you have questions of
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy, or do you have just questions in general?
Well, I'm not sure who's going to answer these questions.
Okay.
First of all, just a general statement. We do need revenue and we do need development in Crescent City, but the point of a planned unit development is that it's very specific and we need to get it right. And we have an obligation not only to increase our tax revenue, but also we have an obligation to protect the integrity of our city, what people come here for. So for ecotourism, you're coming here for the appearance of nature. And as well, we have an obligation to be considerate and not lower the property values of the people who live nearby. So I think we need to take all those things into account. My question that came from some of the public comment was, what kind of electricity will be supplied? Will there be generators on site?
Mr. Kennedy, will you come to the podium so that
Yeah, I'll try to
in the
help out.
essence of time?
Mr. Gilmore and I might tag team this a little bit. The only generator currently planned, I believe, is for the lift station, which you need to have. There's a, yeah, the lift station is up almost by necessity. It's up in this area of the park. Again, exact point might be pinned down based on how everything grades out and the levels to get the line And then it'll be tying into the force main that comes by the property on this side.
Okay, so in other words, the lift station will be somewhere on the northern boundary.
Correct.
Okay, so, and the staff report, which was sent to me by email, but is not in my folder, says that the project will meet all levels of service. So in other words, our water plant and sewer plant have the capacity to serve. It says there'll be 105 sites and there could be potentially 300 people on the site at one time with a restaurant. So
Yeah, the plant is, capacity is there for water and sewer. That's in my analysis.
That's in there. You gave us, yes.
And the sewer actually is almost too low, needs a little more flow come to it, but that said, there's plenty of capacity in both plants.
okay, and then as well, I thought Ms. Langen, I mean, the one thing that I observed looking at this site plan is that it is predominantly pavement. Mr. Gilmore talked about, in your proposal, talked about preserving trees and landscape. But when I look at this, everything on the interior, it shows like a few little bushes around the edge of the parking lot. And I do have a significant concern. Number one, like Commissioner Banks, I've looked at other RV parks around here. There's the cherry blossom model, and I'm a little bit confused. Commissioner Banks says I thought cherry blossom was the old KOA. It's a different one.
Same one.
That's the same one.
Same
Cherry
one,
blossom,
That's the
okay.
same one.
Yeah,
That's the one he was referring to. He
Right,
just
I
changed
thought
the
so.
name.
Okay.
They changed the name.
Right, there's kind of two models locally. There's the Renegades model, which when you go in that park, it's basically all pavement with a few palm trees around. That looks like the newer model. When you look at cherry blossom, the reason you don't really notice it, and I've had friends who have camped there, is because it's predominantly unpaved and the vehicles are parked in and amongst the trees. So my three concerns I have about the layout are, it does seem to be taking the interior of nearly 15 acres and making it predominantly pavement. This pavement here runs straight down the grade. I'm not sure how attractive it's going to be to have, this is Lake Crescent. It shows RV sites immediately off of Lake Crescent. It does not show any trees screening this whole complex from Lake Crescent. So when you're kind of talking about ecotourism and nature, the people here will be looking out on Lake Crescent, but anyone on Lake Crescent will be looking basically at a cleared off parking lot that looks kind of like Renegades. So my suggestion would be, and I heard the word impervious brick pavers. It seems to me that this park is too much in the Renegades model, that it will not look particularly attractive from the water. And as well, for the noise issue, if you do not have any significant vegetation on the interior, whatever noise, or if you have no significant vegetation on the water, my husband and I live on the water on Lake Stella. I can hear noise from north of Central Avenue all the way down the water. I can hear people talking down at the boat ramp, which is a full block and a half down. I can hear people playing music from the water. Okay, well,
No, I know, but I know.
this is the only hearing on this.
I know. Go ahead.
And I didn't know
We have a second one.
Well,
There'll
I
be a
was
second
told
one.
that there is no opportunity for questions. So, and as well, if I had known that I had opportunity to meet directly with Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Gilmore and ask questions, I would have done that ahead of time. But I was not told that there was an opportunity to do that.
Well, you could have called and any commissioner can meet with any pro or con on any rezoning application, it's only required that during ex parte communication at the commission meetings, they have to expose that. They have to tell it. It has to be on the record.
Well, we.
For future records.
So these are the points that I'm making. I think there will be a runoff issue. I think there will be a noise issue if there is not added more vegetation on the interior. It just seems that this is, considering that this affects the residents. Considering that this affects one of the most beautiful residential neighborhoods in town, and the waterfront properties there have a significant value. And it is actually zoned multifamily residential. Essentially, you are putting a commercial element in down here. And then you are, essentially making it into a very, very paved area, which is not really so compatible with the neighborhood next door. So I'm suggesting that there be specific additions. I'm suggesting that some of this asphalt, by the way, the copy that we were provided as attachment 1 in our folders, I just got this tonight, is too small and completely illegible. So this is the first chance I've had to read this. It says there is a road pavement, 134,894 square feet, which I think is going to be a problem with the runoff. And specifically, I would like to ask Patrick and Mr. Gilmore, the provision about lighting, as I understand it in the development agreement, it says that on the north side and toward any commercial properties, the lighting would be directed away from other areas. I would think it would be very beneficial to have that applied to the Lake Crescent side as well, so that the lighting is not bouncing out on the water. I have experience with that as well. Just lights on people's houses amplify once they hit the water. If you have lighting on the shore of Lake Crescent, it would go out very far, and people in the homes in the county to the south and people to the north would see it. And I guarantee you when the moon's up, you would not see a lot of the moon. So my suggestions would be to reduce the number of paved spaces, add some more permeable space, make sure that you have landscape and tree screening along the front, and that you direct water away from the lake. And as well.
Can I address that, Commissioner?
Sure.
Just, for your, the water management district will require management storage of surface water from MSSW. There will be no discharge to the lake from any storm water. They're designed, their stormwater retention is designed for a 1 in 100-year storm event. Is that correct?
Yes, and our development agreement commits us to follow water management district and local stormwater regulations.
Can I ask a question?
Actually, there's only 46% of impervious surface on the entire property. I think if you look, and I know it might be difficult to see even on the larger,
right,
but this needs to be considered in a lot of other jurisdictions. This stage is really more of a bubble plan, and the devil is in the details of the final site plan. That's why you put the stuff in writing, so to speak. But we calls for a 20-foot vegetative buffer on the north, on the south and the west side, and it's a 50-foot vegetative buffer on the north side, although some of that will be grass and swale, but a minimum, committed to a minimum of 25 feet of vegetation between the fence and the property. So that it'll be fully vegetated around the perimeter. They will not be allowed to remove any cypress trees or anything of that nature along the shoreline. They don't plan to. If you look at the site plan, the RV sites themselves are only 12 foot wide, and there is open area on either side. And again, this is more of a what I call bubble plan, and and Mr. Gilmore can tell you more about this, but he plans on trying to preserve as many trees as he can, because he understands RVers like the trees, they like the shade. It does make the park nicer for the folks staying there. So that's again why we put in the developers agreement that it's the text that trumps this plan because it is a concept plan.
Right,
It's a 10,000 foot view, so to speak.
so specifically, what about the issue of directing lighting also on the east
I just-
side away from the lake?
Yeah, I just made a note, and I don't. Yeah, we have shielded aimed downward, we just have that for the entire park.
Because
Shielded in downward away from the property boundary.
Right, because certainly to me, that would be beneficial for just the general ambiance, the wildlife, and the people who live around it.
The only exception we might make, and that will come to site plan, but they're gonna need lighting when they have a pier. They'll need lighting out on the lake with the pier, more than likely, just at least security.
Well, actually, the lower the lighting, the less the better.
It'd be a small downlight on the way.
Right, no, I know what you mean, but if it's on a building or it's up high, then it broadcasts out and it bounces off the water. That is very different. And I do understand the concerns of the neighbors about the evening noise. No, I don't know, but as you said, the devil is in the details. If there's not enough vegetation, it's possible that neighborhoods across Highway 17 could hear the noise. And I don't know that we want to be hearing that noise after 11 o'clock.
They're
Or up
stopping
until-
it, aren't you stopping it at 11 o'clock
Yeah.
on Friday,
Clock
Saturday?
hours on Friday,
and
Saturday,
holidays,
stop at
Sundays.
11, all your other nights.
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock other nights, 10 o'clock.
Right, so, but it is a commercial area. I've been to places in Daytona Beach Shores that basically they have their quiet hours at 9 o'clock and everybody seems very happy. I just think for something that's adjacent to a residential area, and that has this many units, I think an earlier quiet time would benefit the community as a whole.
Well, actually, there is also commercial, it's adjacent to commercial because we have what used to be the old Circle K there. So it's a mixed use in there of commercial and residential.
Right,
So it's
we-
not all residential.
Right, but there's a very significant residential component of South Prospect
Right.
Street. It's a very nice street. So, I mean, I think the point is very well taken that there should be as little noise as possible leaving the property site. And as well, something that just strikes me, and this is a question for Mr. Gilmore. Would you be amenable to naming this something other than moonshine, which I think really does not convey the image of Crescent City that has, you know, we have the moon, thank you. But we have a crescent moon and our logo is the bell of Crescent City. Moonshine, frankly, to me, does not convey anything upscale. Obviously, it conveys something illegal. And, you know, moonrise, there are other names with moons in them that I think would better represent Crescent City. And if it's truly going to be an upscale resort, it seems that it could use a more upscale name.
Okay.
Have you considered that at all? Mr. Gilmore, has anyone mentioned it?
They're building a brand around the name. They want to stick with the name. They're building a brand around the name. Yeah.
Well, they're coming to Crescent.
Do you have any other questions, Commissioner DeVito?
I'm not sure he hasn't answered this one. I'm going down my list.
Should know.
He said no.
Yes.
That's
we're
his
building
brand.
We don't have any plans to entertain any other names. It's a brand that we're going to continue throughout the state of Florida and the southeast United States if all goes well. It's something that surprisingly brings more guests. I can tell you on a weekly basis, we get people that say they wanted to check us out just because of the name of our park. It's a catchy, cheap thing. We're not making it in the back in our workshop or anything. We have no
Well, I
desire
understand you're not
to have a
making
liquor license or anything.
Right, and just speaking of liquor license, just to be clear, so the amenities on the site, the store and the restaurant, Those are open to public or closed to public?
The restaurant will be only open to guests of the park and folks that come in from the water. There will be no automobile traffic. Any guests allowed into the park by car to come to the restaurant.
Okay, and as well, you mentioned irrigation for the landscaping that you want to do on 17. So are you planning to use well water for that?
That's undetermined at this point. It's something we'll probably work through in our final plan. And this, I just wanted to clarify, this plan that you see in front of you is it's a fairly generic preliminary plan. That's exactly what it is a preliminary plan. As Patrick mentioned, each tree is not shown on there. We haven't had a tree survey done yet. That is something that will be done prior to our final plan review with the city. Our current park, when we bought the land, it had already been cleared. And I can't tell you how many complaints we get because we don't have enough shade. My wife and I were RVers for years before starting our existing park. And I have no desire to take out any more trees than are absolutely necessary to get in the sites that we need to get in. I'll actually be willing to lose a site if it means I get to save one of these big, beautiful live oaks that are on the property. The front third of the property is mostly planted pines with some sporadic oaks within them. The pines will probably be harvested because they're more of a danger long-term to guest RVs than the oak trees are. So we want to maintain as many of the hardwoods there. There's a lot of invasive species, camper trees and whatnot also on the property and other areas that will come down. But if it's an oak, I want to keep it, as long as it's not in the footprint maybe of our amenity center. If it's in a footprint of an RV site, then we'll revisit how many RV sites are on that row.
Right.
I mean, as it's written, it's gonna have to go through, again, site plan review, which will look at a tree survey and what trees will be taken and what will be left in place and when the code requires replacement. Well, that's what we'll work on.
The lighting that we use in our current park that I plan to use here is a solar lamp post. It's about 6-7 feet tall, and it has a ambient lighting area of about a 20-foot radius, and that's it. It's just basically to give folks, when they're out walking their dog at night in the dark, an idea of where this street goes, and to give an indication of the roadway itself. I don't want huge towers of lights everywhere. Campers don't like that. They don't want those lights shining in their bedroom window at night when they're trying to sleep. So, the majority of the lighting might be closer to the amenities area, but we'll do everything we can to keep that directed back into the facility and away from any of the neighbors. We want to be a good neighbor. I said that in our first planning and zoning meeting. That's why I've been to the houses of the neighbors to meet with them and be as to be as good of a neighbor as we can be. All of the sites, the RV sites, will be full hookup sites, meaning we don't need a dump station because everybody can do what they need to do at their own site before they leave. We'll have employees that monitor all of the RV sites for trash pickup. After every guest leaves, the grounds are picked up and ready, cleaned up, raked up. Anything that has to be done is done before our next guests come in. We want every guest to have a great experience. We want this to be the beautiful asset to the city that we feel it can be. And absolutely, we would love to be a good steward to the neighborhood, to the community.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Well, I do have
Commissioner DeVito, can I ask you with your questions, how long do you think your questions are going to take?
Well, I just have a couple more, but the purpose of a hearing is.
I understand that. I just
I
wanna-
call the question and move that we stop the debate, please.
We don't have a motion yet. We don't have a motion yet, so
Well,
we
let's make a
can't.
motion.
Okay, so in other words, we're not going to ask questions. We're just
I'm going to allow you to go
Okay,
forward.
well,
Do
I'd like
you
to-
have, can you limit it to 3 more questions?
Probably so. I'll do my
Okay,
best.
thank you.
very appropriate. Okay, Mr. Kennedy, the dry retention ponds, and I know this is a concept plan.
Correct.
But they seem, particularly the one on the northern boundary.
This whole thing.
I'm just confused as to why on such a vertical slope, why there is a retention pond that's so long and narrow right on the northern boundary. What?
Well, the engineer developed the site plan, I think, so I don't want to pretend to be an engineer here today, but when you go back to the contour maps, I think that's in the roadways, you know, they're gonna try to keep the water coming from the roadway from coming in their property, but basically, the way the contour map, it kind of comes at a diagonal a little bit. And so you're gonna get a lot of water flow coming straight down this side, just because of where the contours are. But also, the streets and roads will be sloped so that they drain towards the ponds, the general direction the ponds are located on the site.
We have to put it there to keep any stormwater from going to the neighbor's property. That's why.
Okay, so it's to prevent it going to the neighbor's property, and I guess when the water management district looks at it or whatever, it will be further reviewed.
Absolutely.
They have to actually get a permit.
Yeah, we can't avoid them.
Right, okay. I just want to be clear on that because the lake is to this eastern boundary, so anyway, all right. That was most of my, well, one other question, item number 939. I talked to Mr. Leary about that when I met with him. It says signs will be approved at a later date. My question is, it seems like it would make sense for the signage also to conform to the same architectural style chosen. You had mentioned the 1900 era.
For signage,
Yes, for the signs, that's
architectural.
39.
The architectural style of the clubhouse is what I mentioned. Will maintain the.
But she's asking that the sign be the same architectural style, but we're still, I mean, again, that's too much in flux to commit to anything specific, but certainly we want to be consistent with the look and feel of the entire park.
Right, but it
It's hard to pin down at this early stage until you start spending that kind of money when you know you have the property, you know, got at least a yellow light. if not a green light.
Right, and that is really my last questions are, I'm not sure what posture we're in. I was told that this is being rushed to completion. We're having the two hearings basically 14 days apart because there is a June deadline to get this approved for the contract. For
They
the
have a closing date, so we're trying to meet that date, but we're still meeting all the notice and time requirements of the statutes and Crescent City's on development.
And there's been no rush, and it's been formally reviewed by
Multiple times. I
my
understand.
staff and
I understand.
Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay,
But, and so the fact, now I have in my folder, I have no minutes from the Planning and Zoning Commission. You mentioned that there were minutes, there are not minutes. There aren't minutes on the website.
They would be draft minutes at this point.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
draft, they have to be approved.
Right, but there are minutes
If there are.
from, there were 3 meetings, and there's no minutes in the folder from any of the planning and zoning meetings. And it does seem to me that this is a little bit rushed. I inquired of a nonprofit organization that advises on land development, and they said that usually when there's a contract deadline and you're coming near it, that you get an extension and you allow enough time.
those extensions cost money typically. I'm quite sure they probably told you that too.
Yeah.
You know, my goal is not to have applications sit in there for weeks and months like they have, that we move things through the process and at the deference of, you know, people's rights to have an expedited hearing. We've had 3 planning and zoning commission meetings, it's been vetted, the property owners have been notified 3 different times. We run the legal ads that do meet the statutory requirements. And there's nothing been rushed about that. We are trying to finish this at the 27th meeting so that we can move forward. But
I understand.
I can tell you this, in my 35 plus years, this is absolutely the best concept plan and proposal that for an RV site that I've seen.
Okay, at this time, I want to call for a motion. Do I have a motion by any of our commissioners at this time?
I think it's just to accept the first reading.
Well, okay, that's true. But we have to have a motion to
I make a
accept it.
motion that we accept. the
Right,
first reading.
thank you.
Right.
That's
That's right. So I have a motion to accept. I have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Say aye. I'm gonna do a roll call. Hold on, one second. Let's do a roll call. Okay, Commissioner Burton,
Aye.
Commissioner Banks,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner DeVito.
I,
Aye. Okay, this will move
Thank you.
forward to the
See you on
second reading.
27th, that would be the adoption.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, Mr. Leary,
Ma'am.
your turn.
Thank you, ma'am, and I'll try to be quick. My first, item 9AA, recommendation and request for approval of cost of living increase for city staff. That they would have received in over 3 years, maybe 4 years. So I would recommend, we have a resolution that's in your packet that outlines what it is. So
Actually, it's on your table. It should be on your table. Everybody find the resolution?
Yes,
Okay,
it's resolution number 21-01.
yes.
So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the finance director here, and she can answer any questions. We have ample reserves, and we will be in the new budget year looking at a number of additional revenue sources from the standpoint of downsizing and consolidating. And and we also are currently going to receive an additional, we have $60,000 in additional ad valorem taxes that are due to the city that you should be receiving in the next, hopefully 60 to 90 days. I'll answer any questions.
Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions?
Actually, I'd like to make the motion right now, because it seems like the questions go on forever. So I'd like to make the motion right now that we accept the resolution to go ahead and put this amendment into the budget for the cost of living adjusted for the city staff.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion, we have a second, we have any discussion? Commissioner DeVito?
I have some questions for the city manager. It's my understanding, both by our charter or by state law, that to amend our budget, which is an ordinance, that we have to have an ordinance, not a resolution.
Always been done by resolution, isn't that correct?
It really has, yeah, it really has. I'm not arguing your point, but your budget amendments have typically been done by resolution.
Right, but this is,
So I'm following the way it's been done, and so.
okay, but this is a significant budget change, and we're doing it 4 months before the start of the next fiscal year.
Well, I would disagree with you that it's a significant change. I think, if you look at our overall budget and our reserves and what has occurred with the elimination of the police department and everything, I think this is just a normal change. I would not consider it that. And one of the things that I found when I came here, that our staff was very demoralized. They felt like they weren't appreciated, and they were taken for granted. And, if I'm going to stay, even on an interim basis, I think that we need to send a message to our staff that we support them. You're talking about $80 every 2 weeks. And when you're sitting on $1 million+ in reserves, I quite frankly think it's insulting not to try to get your staff, the majority of them, to a living wage.
Okay, but therein, and I do not agree, and I would like the city attorney to speak to why the state law does not apply or our charter doesn't apply. Yes, I've been very concerned for years that some years we do not give our staff a raise. And we know that our staff does not have a high pay scale. However, we should really do this in the context. We don't have any other figures before us. This is a recurring expense. I sent a question, and I think you distributed it to the Clarion firm as well as to David Peacock. It is not typical to fund recurring expenses like staff salaries out of a reserve. These are going to be recurring expenses, and we have to find a way to fund them out of our recurring budget. And it would seem the most appropriate time to do that. And this is a $2 an hour across the board increase would be at the regular budget hearing.
Well,
Not at the tag end of the budget year. Because once we've decided, once you give people a raise, we are locked in and we are taking this money out of reserves.
correct.
That's not
Which we have,
for operating.
we have 3 times the reserves of what is the recommendation of the Government and Finance Association to have 3 to 4 months of operating expenses in reserves. We're talking about $36,000 for the balance of the fiscal year. I can assure you that I can go through the budget and we will have ample money. That is my responsibility and the finance directors and the Clarion's. And I wouldn't bring this to you if I didn't think we had the money or we're going to have the money as we go forward in the new budget year. So, you know, Mayor, I mean,
No, I understand, and I absolutely support this, simply because I know in working with the people that we work with and the fine people that we work with and the job that they do, and quite honestly, I apologized to one of them when I found out how much she made. I really did, with what has been placed on, what was placed on her. I was appalled. I apologized. I was embarrassed and I apologized. And so I mean, I absolutely support this. Any way we've got to do it, I'm going to say, let's do it, because these are our people. These are the people that are running the city of Crescent City, and we've got to value them. And so that's it. We have a motion. We have a second. Let's vote. Let's vote.
Could we get an answer from the city attorney?
Jay, can you address that?
As to why, even though the charter and the state statutes say that an ordinance is required to provide for the appropriation of funds or to amend an appropriation already made, this is from our charter, section 2.17, that we are simply doing a motion.
the motions.
I'm familiar with
It's a motion.
7 to provide for the appropriation fund. I saw the resolution this evening, discussed it with Mr. Leary. It's my understanding, and I'm not an accountant, that it is not changing the budget. It's an interdepartmental transfer of funds within the budget. Now, I'm not a CPA, so I don't know the correct language. Maybe
Well, this is
Mr. Leary is of the opinion that it's simply an intergovernmental transfer of funds in the resolution covers. And that the charter says to provide for the appropriation of funds.
okay. So which governs section 166-241 Florida statute that deals with fiscal years, budgets, and budget amendments specifically for municipalities. And that says, basically, that says that budgeted revenues and expenditures have to be shown by organizational unit according to a certain standard. And if you make a change in the funding of an organizational unit that takes from another organizational unit, that has to be done by ordinance. So I don't understand why we don't do that.
Okay, which part of 241 is this?
I'm looking at subsection 2 and as well subsection 5 that says, subsection 5A says, appropriations for expenditures within a fund may be decreased or increased.
Wait now.
What?
2.241.2.
Right, that basically says you have to
Yeah.
adopt your budget by ordinance or
We did.
resolution.
You did.
Okay, then when you go to 5, it talks about you may amend a budget for a particular year. There's parent A that says you can do a motion recorded in the record to increase or decrease funds within a specific fund.
By motion.
Right, but we're taking from the reserves and putting it
Which is
into
a
a
fund.
but we are putting it into the staff salaries fund. We are moving it.
Okay, yes, sir, Mr. Leary. Mr. Leary,
We
you
let
want
the
to?
finance director,
Yes.
she has worked with the Clarion, our financial consultant, the CPAs that are, and I'll let her tell you.
Okay. Speak on.
Today we went over this with John Gary from Clarion, and he went to his boss. And they both said that this was okay to do it this way. They approved it, they looked over and made sure I had done it right, and they said that that was okay.
Okay. Okay,
Okay.
that's what we're gonna go, that's what we're gonna go on. So we have a motion to accept the resolution. We have a second. All in favor, and again, we're gonna do a roll call. Karen, would you do the roll call for us, please?
I was starting to.
I know, but I was trying to.
I just let you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Banks,
Aye.
Commissioner Burton,
Aye.
Commissioner DeVito,
No,
Commissioner West. Aye. Mayor Myers.
Aye. Okay, the resolution passes. Well, thank you.
Item 9AB, reestablishment of the position of city administrator, from a city administrative clerk to city clerk position, and the commensurate salary adjustment for that. The city clerk is an integral part of the check and balance system in city government. And so my recommendation is that we reestablish in that position and through the process. So that's what my request is.
Okay, and I move to approve the reclassification of administrative assistants to city clerk with a salary adjustment to $37,440.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Karen, will you do a roll call for us, please?
Commissioner Burton,
Aye.
Commissioner Banks,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner DeVito,
no,
Mayor Myers.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes.
And Mayor, the last item is a combination of two different things, the land development code and our evaluation and appraisal report of our comprehensive plan, which I'm working with the regional council on now and the Department of Economic Opportunity. We will be doing a review. They will be doing a review of our comprehensive plan, and then subsequent to that, we'll be doing a review and update of our land development code. And also part 2 of that is with respect to enforcing our codes. I have a recommendation that John Spicer and Michelle Holland, 2 citizens, be appointed to the Code Enforcement Board. They were brought forth to me by Commissioner DeVito, and they both are excellent candidates. And the ordinance doesn't give specific guideline, only that they have to be appointed by the commission. So I'm recommending that also tonight. That will allow us to have a quorum for the Code Enforcement Board and to immediately advertise for a hearing to address our critical application or critical issues that we have with certain violators.
John Spicer and who?
Michelle Holland.
Oh, Michelle.
they're here,
I'm sorry.
they're here.
Oh, okay.
Raise your hands, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Leary has a recommendation. Do we have a motion to accept John Spicer and Michelle Holland to the,
So moved, I so moved, and I was hoping bios were submitted to Mr. Leary. I was hoping they would be in the packet.
I had distributed them individually to all the commissioners when I met with them prior to, in our pre-meeting hearing, meetings.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
That
Okay.
concludes mine.
Okay, thank you. And thank you both for your willingness to serve. Okay, Jay, I know that you're in retirement discussion. I would hope that we could have that possibly on the 27th, just as far as what your plans are in the future. So can we put that on the 27th? Is that good? Okay. Okay, that's great. And then do you have anything else you want to bring to our
No,
attention?
I'm just glad the city is addressing the IT issue. That's something that's been pretty scary the last few days. And the more I talk to the attorneys, more cities in that line of work, it seems to be happening. The same seems to be happening to small families.
Mhm.
Shutting us off. for a couple
We're not, we are very vulnerable. We truly are. Okay, thank you, Jay. Okay, at this time with the commission.
I have questions for the city manager. Usually we take those.
Okay, do you have a question? I apologize. We'll go back and. Do you have a question?
I do, just briefly, I wanted to comment on the Central Avenue construction to ask if you have any updates for us.
They're proceeding and paving should start pending weather on Friday.
Okay, and do we know at this point the duration of the projected, how long will project?
Should, this section, the west section should be completed within less than a week.
So it's gonna be a lot faster than projected. We were told a couple of months originally, and just one thing I wanted to mention, before you were on board, we talked about this project and notification, not only of the businesses. I had a concern about the boat ramps for the Lake Stella boat ramp. When they started, I know the businesses were notified. There was no signage at the boat ramp, and a boater who was out of the water was blocked in. So my suggestion would be that before they block off other boat ramps, that we have some kind of signage. So when boaters get there in the morning, they're aware of what is happening and they don't come into the same situation. This particular boater apparently had to drive his truck on the grass and the sidewalk. It wasn't
Yeah,
very.
I was not aware of that, and I thought they had a sign up at the end so that people would not go to the boat ramp, but I'll make sure that when they start on the east side, that's taken care of.
Right, because I saw it the night before and there was no sign there. I mean, I was going by. So, and also I wanted to mention that something the commission voted on in last year's budget was, and the year before, the money was actually carried over to 2021 from the 2019-2020 year. We voted to seek expertise to revise our land development code, and there was a $20,000 carryover for that purpose. That was voted actually 2 years ago by the commission, and it was to address items Mr. Kennedy had identified in our CRA plan, that there are inconsistencies, things that need to be trued up or whatever. And anyway, there's quite a few things I think that were spoken of.
I had discussions with the regional council about, in addition to their help and their review, and they actually have applied for a grant from DEO to do that, to help us with the evaluation appraisal of the comprehensive plan. I also asked them about, doing the revisions of the land development code. Margo Moore, the executive director, said that that's really not what they, their specialty is. And of course, they don't have the staff. So we probably do an RFP for that. But at this point in time, we want to do our appraisal, evaluation of the comprehensive plan. And then that will help guide us with the updates that we need to make to the land development code. So I am aware, I Wouldn't worry about the money, but that's even better.
But I mean, we specifically, it's been 2 years that we voted.
Well, I've only been here 6 weeks, Commissioner, so I.
No. I'm just letting you know that you are embarking on something that actually has been voted on, but not taken action on. So thank you for that. So that is all my questions for this evening. or
Okay.
comments.
Commissioner, do you have any comments? Commissioner Burton, is there anything you want to discuss?
I do. I think that something that we've kind of let go for a while that needs to be addressed is the idea of having a special magistrate. And so therefore, I just want to move to have the city attorney, Jay, okay, finalize an ordinance moving the code enforcement jurisdiction to special magistrate in all matters pertaining to code enforcement. So I'd like that to happen. It's kind of been sitting on the back burner. And I think it's just something that needs to be addressed.
I've been working with the city attorney and we will have that ordinance advertised and for first reading at the May 27th meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think we need a motion. Do you want to withdraw your motion?
I don't need a motion for that?
No.
Okay, then.
We
I'll
withdraw.
withdraw that, but
Okay,
that
thank
would be great.
Priority one for me.
Great. Thank you. Is that it?
That's it.
Commissioner Banks?
Yeah, I got a,
Okay, yes, sir.
our park, we talked about it our last meeting.
Yes, sir.
I think we need to maintain our parks a little more better. We're not maintaining them. We don't pick up the garbage. Well, once we were picking up the garbage on Monday, our parks is heavily used over the weekend. And when we don't pick up the garbage on, then we got these vultures landing on them. Stay on the park, and that ain't helpful for the people that in the park. Well, let me speak down buzzards.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're on the park. So I think we need to maybe put something in paper and ink and pencil so they can appoint somebody. They once were doing that. They once were going there on Monday morning, cleaning the bathrooms up, getting them ready for the week. And all of a sudden that quit. Okay. Next thing about the park.
Yeah.
The finance director can address that.
With this phrase, with the increasing the salaries, hopefully we can get some advocates in to take these positions that we have open. We have, put out an ad for employment and we didn't even get any responses because nobody wants to come to work for the amount of money we were paying. But now with this increase, we should be able to get some more help in those departments.
You get fully staffed.
And Keith has been shorthanded. He
Very
is lacking one since before December, I believe, so.
But we will, Commissioner, I will follow up with the Public Works Director and we will make sure we do a thorough cleaning. We've already did on Monday mornings.
Yeah, on Monday morning, because when it lacks over, you got dogs coming in where you got a sign up there, no dogs.
Yes, sir.
They're driving dogs in there, they're driving the boats in there, people fishing in the park. So I don't know what we need to do to try to control that. Somebody's gonna get hurt direct.
Something else, and if I can piggyback on you for just a minute, Commissioner, in talking to the Sheriff's Department, they're coming in for this with the Cops, Kids and Kayaks, and they're bringing their volunteers, their youth volunteers in, who number one, need community hours. And number two, some of them need community hours. Some need them for college, some need them for other things. So they have two different sets. And so they're bringing them in to clean up Dexter Park prior to, and we're getting volunteer group, talk to Keith about going in and they're going to pressure wash all the concrete area. And we're going to paint that whole wall, the step up wall, clean up the playground equipment and also those bathrooms. But they talked about possibly even having an adoption having some of these groups to adopt a park and help us with this until, you know, we get to a point where we don't need that help. But that was, I was really excited about that they were gonna go over to Dexter Park and they were gonna start there.
Because that was one of my concerns. We generate all these parks and get all these parks and don't have maintain them. Now, Mathis Park, you ask a lot of people in town, if they don't go get the map, they don't know where it's at.
And we have one resident on Mathis Park and he has asked for a floating dock for some years.
I don't know about flow
And I
dock.
asked him, and so Keith, in talking to Mr. Leary and also with Keith to see if there's something so that people could fish right there. You know, not necessarily a floating dock, but if they had some sort of a platform, those are expensive, you know, they're expensive.
Mayor,
Yes,
people do fish in Mathis Park, and the person asking for the dock does not live anywhere near it.
he does live on the lake and he can still request it, just as
Right, I'm
anybody.
just
I
saying.
understand, I didn't say we were doing it, I just said that
Right,
we do have a resident that has requested it.
Right, but he does not live on.
And Colbert Park, we've had an issue with that, with the bathroom. And Keith did address that, so they're gonna open up that one bathroom. So. And we have done that also for the football players. We've given them access in the evenings on Tuesday and Thursday evenings
Harry Banks Park.
at Harry Banks Park. And so they seem very happy and they've been very cooperative with that. Yeah. So.
Okay, well, I wait till we get full staff because our parks being mistreated. They really are, especially Dexter there, because that's where the volume of people be at.
I'll address that. Commissioner.
And someone mentioned to me from the sheriff's department, this is something for us to maybe look into, I don't know. They said if you go to a taxidermist and this is gonna sound, who knows what the paper's gonna report. Sarah, don't listen right this minute, okay? But anyway, they said that if you'll go to a taxidermist legally and you get a dead buzzard and you put it somewhere in that vicinity, that the buzzards will stay away. Never heard of it.
But you know.
I'm like, hey, we'll try anything.
But you know, Commissioner, I don't know about how true that is, but I asked them, the manager up in Pomona Park, because now they park up there is heavily used, but they don't seem to have no buzzards up there like that.
We can give them some.
We got plenty. I was out there the other day and they were everywhere. So, okay, Commissioner, anything else?
No, I'm
Anything else?
Would that work if you tied an attorney out there to a tree?
Might. It might.
We're tired.
Commissioner West, do you have any?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Commissioner West, you have the floor.
In the courses that we're required to take, this has come up and I think it's something that we could probably look at. When people come in, request records, if you just request 1 or 2 pages, it's not a big deal. If you're requesting, 1 or 2 inches of papers, and then when they come to pick it up and we say, it's so much money, and they say, oh, that's too much, I don't want it. And this lawyer is saying, he's from Port Orange, that gives this, Shepherd is his last name, but it's legal to request, when you make a request, to get the money up front. Give them a charge, this is what it's gonna cost, get the money up front. If they think it's too much, then we haven't spent. I know Karen just loves to do hours of extra work. And then all the paper, and I know my ink at home is, and you know, it's true, it's not cheap. And then by the time all that money and staff has put it in it, and you say, I don't want it because it costs too much, then you know what it costs. And if you really want it, then you pay the money up front. I'd like to see us do that.
If you make a motion, we'll adopt that as an internal policy.
All right, I make the motion that from now forward, that anytime someone makes a request for records from Crescent City, The charge will be up front. You pay the charge and then you get your paperwork.
That's it.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. You have anything else, Commissioner West, you have the floor?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Commissioner DeVito.
Just wanted to mention, and I had mentioned this to Mr. Leary, that the Florida League of Cities Conference is coming up in August. It is in Orlando. That is the closest location
For us, yeah.
that is for us, which means that's the most affordable. I think the next year it's down in Broward County, which is quite a ways. Mr. Leary asked whether, he said he didn't know whether there was money in the budget. We do have money. We put money in every year for our training. This year, the League of Cities Conference conflicts by one day with our August 12th regular commission meeting.
Okay.
So in future, we might want to look at adjusting our meeting that week so that we can possibly attend.
We can do it now. I mean,
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can
why don't we
adjust
do
that.
that
That's,
now?
it's not too late to adjust
no,
that.
not too late.
Right.
We can
We've
go
got
in.
a couple of months.
We can even look at it. Why don't we do this? Can we look at it on the 27th and adjust it on that day?
And maybe come up with some ideas.
I won't be here on the 27th, but because we've moved the special meeting twice, so I will not be here. My thought was we could have the meeting the same week, but the Tuesday prior, and that would give us the Wednesday in between. The registration has not yet come out, so I'm assuming that we will have a little time to get registered. I forgot how long in advance. 'Cause I've only been to
What are
one.
the dates?
The dates are August 12th, 13th, and 14th, and for the one conference I went to, it was front loaded. That first day, the 12th, will probably start right at 8 a.m. and have the majority of the conferences and activities. And then the 14th is more social and awards banquet. I mean, if you were gonna miss a day, it would be the one on the end.
How about the 10th, which is a Tuesday of that week? We could do the 11th, but then you're leaving the next morning.
Right, well, that was my suggestion, to do Tuesday, the 10th, but, we haven't given Phil much notice.
Oh, that's not a problem.
That's no problem. All right,
We can do that and make a motion. We'll be happy to adjust the schedule.
okay,
We
so.
got plenty of time.
Right, so I move that we change our regular commission meeting for the month of August from the appointed date, Thursday the 12th, to Tuesday the 10th, to enable commissioners to attend the League of Cities conference.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
That's
That's
right.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. August 10th is the date.
And then I just want to follow up. I think Commissioner Banks raised a good point about what is going on at the Dexter Beach Park. It's kind of two different points. The trash is one thing, but he mentioned that people are fishing, parking their boats. I've seen them doing the jet ski. Trash is one issue. The multiplicity of activities going on there and the fact that we don't really have any personnel there. The other night, I just asked Sheriff's Dispatch if somebody could ride by at dark, just to make sure everybody leaves, because they were there until dark. But those are kind of two separate issues, and I know you brought up the issue of the seaplane landing. So at a future time, now that it's getting to be summer, we might want to talk about maybe designated areas or asking the sheriff's office to take a ride by, especially on the weekends or something. Because there is a lot that goes on there and it involves machinery.
We may want to put a fine for anyone or make it an ordinance, no parking or bringing boats up. Those, the rotor on the motor is just lethal to bodies. And that just makes me sick to think about a child walking into it. And we shouldn't have boats pull up on that beach at all. And we might want to look at an ordinance with an attached fine.
We might study that. Yeah,
Right.
Look at that.
From what I see there, I think it's an issue.
Yeah, I agree with you. It has not been for many years, but it is now.
And I think some people park and swim at the park, and then there's a group with them who puts the boat in at the boat ramp.
Yes,
then
and
they-
comes around
And then they come around and they
Right.
park at, they're literally on the beach.
on the beach, right?
Not out in the water.
Right, they're on the beach with a boat
I
and
think
their jet
we
skis.
had talked about, and I think that's something that Keith and Mr. Leary are looking at, how we could rope that area off.
And
So
put signage to
and
the.
put
Signage,
signage
right.
there. So they are addressing that right currently.
Good.
And I do know the sheriff's department, they're gonna be roping it off for the swimmers and for the activities when they're out there for cockpits and kayaks too. Okay,
Maybe we can leave the ropes there.
maybe. Commissioner DeVito, you have anything else? Okay, you're good. Okay, at this time, I'm gonna open up public comment. I apologize, it has gotten so late. So do we have any public comment? Where's Mr. Coleman?
Right here.
Okay, you're
Oh
first.
my God.
You are number one.
Sir. I just want to again. Lawrence Code, 517, running down the 56. I guess I'm gonna get with the city manager about the permit, but I was wondering about the crime, I guess, the DOT permit, you have that too?
Sir.
The DOT permit, the road code. I know you said you only been here
Yes, sir.
6 weeks.
Yeah,
This
we
is
have
the
that.
Veterans Day parade.
We have, yes, sir.
Right, okay, this to be November 13th, it's on a Saturday. And I've already had people come in and see, things have changed, everybody's got their shots, you know, that ain't there, and red, white, and blue. I want to bring back,
Veterans Day Parade.
right, Veterans Day parade, we've had it
All
for 2
four.
years, 2 years, except for the pandemic of last year. So, and like, small towns, so we ain't gotta worry about too much social distance because, but at the same time, granted, it does bring a small bit of commerce to the city for that day. And,
We'll be happy to work with you any way we can to facilitate that.
right, because, we're gonna have the Rocket Man and, the PERT, response team, Smokey the Bear, and a few other added attractions this year. I just want to bring the city up to right now as to, so, okay, it's a go for it, am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Great.
They already took care of that last week.
Okay, all right, so, if it's a go for it, I'm home.
Can I ask you, Mr. Coleman, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Have you been working with Rick LeBlanc at all?
Me and him, we're comrades.
Yeah.
We're gonna be Eagle Riders and Freedom Riders,
Okay,
right, and, like I said, there's gonna be the football team, high school, I have so many other people that called me from last year as, to go for this year.
well, he and I get the veterans, they went down and they cleaned the memorial and they took care of that. Yes, sir.
Right,
So I think you were part of that. And so
Yes.
we greatly appreciate that. And we greatly appreciate Rick taking that initiative. So,
Well, like I say, I'm the veterans veteran, and we're gonna keep Crescent City and instead of them going from Palaca to D-Land for Veterans Day parade, we can stop here in the middle, and by the time you finish your going forward, I'm gonna go back. to
and you always do a great job of that.
Right,
So,
we're gonna stop here.
Right.
okay.
All right,
Thank you,
very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Larry.
Okay, do we have any other public comment? Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna bring up great ideas. I know we have,
I'm so sorry. Can you?
all right. Because we have 725 Rocket Lane, Crescent City, 32.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I know we don't have any police here right now, and I know that Officer Ursulli told me that he was hiring 5 officers. A lot of the people in the town are scared and worried, and I think what you all need to do is like a little powwow so the community can meet who's serving their community.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we have police here 24
Yeah.
hours a day.
We do, and the sheriff's office, I do believe when they open up, he's gonna have a meet and greet. Everybody come
Down
in
there at the school
where they're
site.
having their substation.
All right, and number 2,
Yes, sir.
we leave the, like, whole Putnam County, especially here, and people not having jobs. And with you all being in power, you all could talk to maybe all the local businesses, like the woman at the last meeting where she pulled up that thing on the website with all the jobs available. A lot of people don't know about that. And maybe if you guys set up a job fair, had food trucks, maybe had some of the local businesses involved, it would help.
Okay.
And number three, what the gentleman said about the computers, I work in computers. Anybody can break in the ear thing right now with a smartphone, a tablet, anything. And you guys need a contract more than 4 months and a year. It's a lifetime commitment.
Absolutely,
We
absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
we'll do that.
And thank you for recognizing that.
Right.
Because this is a big
I'm
expenditure
just
on
saying, I
us.
work
but-
in computers, I
Thank
went to school for it, I have a degree.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none come to the podium at this time, we're going to adjourn at 9:15. Thank you all very much.